Welcome to Wife Cheating Story. I hope you have an enjoyable and relaxing time listening. Let's get started.
My wife thought she could hide her summer affairs, smiling in public while tearing apart our marriage in private. Her young lovers were just pawns, paid with my money. The lies, the betrayal, all wrapped in the facade of a perfect life. I didn't confront her. I planned. Every detail, every move, meticulous. They thought I was oblivious. I wasn't. Now she's about to learn what real consequences feel like. Revenge isn't a rage-filled scream. It's a quiet storm that leaves no escape. When the truth comes out, the question isn't if she'll fall, but how hard. Claire. I looked into Stephen's eyes and noticed they seemed empty and dark. I felt a wave of guilt as I realized that, even though he was with me, there wasn't any real love there. While he was about to say something, I wondered how long we could keep pretending our relationship mattered. To him, I was just an older woman he turned to for occasional gifts. Honestly, it wasn't always money. I had bought him items like books, food, and even a stethoscope. He seemed to prefer when I gave him something he needed instead of just cash. I think money made him feel a little less valued. For me, he was simply someone I turned to for comfort that I wasn't getting from Blake. I guess depending on him was a way of avoiding the truth. Rather than face Blake about our problems, it felt easier to seek some support from Stephen. Stephen shifted and lay down beside me. He put his hand on my stomach. It was a gesture I found comforting until I remembered that I guided his hand there during our first encounters. I smiled at the thought and mentally compared it to training a pet. He wasn't reaching out for genuine connection. He thought touching me would please me. With Blake, he had always enjoyed being close after we spent time together. He showed affection and made me feel valued. He would cuddle with me, holding me in a way that felt cherished. In contrast, Stephen's touch seemed more like an obligation. Once he had what he wanted, he liked to keep some distance until he sought my company again. Yet, he also needed to be kind to ensure I'd welcome him back. We were both wandering through our own confusion. Now was the awkward moment that, with Blake, would have been the best part. We would share a sweet silence and reflect on our love. Instead, I smiled and watched Stephen fidget uncomfortably, which brought a slight humor to the situation and eased my guilt. I had strayed from my marriage because of loneliness, while Stephen was just looking for friendship with an older woman. I decided to lighten the mood. "Are you coming to lunch with my friends and me, Stephen?" I asked cheerfully. His expression changed slightly. "That would be wonderful," he said with a smile. His accent made even simple words sound special. "But I need to be at the hospital soon." His face showed a hint of regret. If he felt uncomfortable being seen with me, I wondered why he never accepted my earlier invitations. It felt like time to stop pretending. "I thought about you before I got here," I said, smiling. I left an envelope on the table next to my purse. His sudden rush surprised me. He glanced at his watch and acted like he didn't notice the time passing. He got dressed quickly, clearly wanting to leave. He grabbed his things without even looking at the envelope. We both knew what was inside. He gave me a quick goodbye and left, shutting the door behind him quickly. As he walked out, he called back, "Call me later." In that moment, I felt more frustrated with him than with myself. But I knew I would call him again. I still had my own needs, even if I didn't enjoy having him around. I took a shower and got dressed, making sure my makeup was just right. My next meeting was with people who cared more about looks than Stephen ever did. Just as I was thinking about this, Stephen returned to the room. "I'm sorry," he said. "I forgot my car keys. You look amazing. I hope I haven't upset you." "Why would you think that, Stephen?" I asked. "It's just that you look so lovely and—" He hesitated. "Maybe earlier you seemed a bit cold." "Oh my," a voice suddenly said as I noticed a woman at the door, one of my lunch companions who had caught our conversation. She quickly nodded and left, not giving me a chance to respond. 20 minutes later, after Stephen had gone to his car and I had taken the elevator down, I joined my oldest friends at our usual table to chat and plan a charity event. After all, this is what wealthy women are expected to do, right? As I looked around the table, I spotted Lisa Caldwell, the woman who had just seen me with Stephen, with a smile that looked satisfied. I knew Lisa would handle the situation one of two ways. Either she would bring up what she saw during lunch to embarrass me, or she would wait until we were alone. If she chose the second option, it meant she wanted something from me, and that could be tricky. My stomach was in knots as we chatted through lunch. I couldn't believe this had happened because of Stephen leaving the door open. We talked about various topics, but I can't remember most of them. I couldn't even recall which charity we decided to support with our upcoming event. Most of my thoughts were on Stephen. I didn't think about him with admiration. Instead, I wondered why I was getting involved with him at all. I thought about why there had been a Mario and a James before him, and even another man I had seen briefly, but he didn't count as anything serious. While he had been part of my summer adventures, I realized I had made many mistakes along the way. He was part of the reason I created clear rules for my short relationships. These rules made sure both sides knew we were only having fun, and that my husband and my marriage were my main focus. Yet that morning I began to wonder why I was even involved in these situations. I wasn't in love with any of them, and I knew they didn't feel anything serious for me either. At first, I sought attention more than anything else, but my latest connection with Stephen felt different. I thought about how things had changed. Blake enjoyed being close to others. Last summer, there were times I found it hard to pull myself back together after spending time with Mario, only for Blake to bring me back into focus. Now, however, it felt like our close moments had come to a sudden stop without a clear reason. If Blake were someone else, I might think he was being unfaithful. Just the idea of him being with another person hurt and made me angry. The thought of him sharing special times with someone else bothered me, especially as I felt unfilled. "Clara Livingston," Lisa said with a smile. "You haven't touched your food, and you're twisting your napkin like it's about to snap. Are you okay? Is everything all right at home?" Her smile made me uneasy. I could feel that Lisa and I would not get along well soon. She thought she had a lead over me because of what she had seen, but I wasn't easily scared. Lisa was divorced and depended on big payments from her ex-husband, a well-known doctor who seemed to have a new wife often. He treated his marriages like cars, getting rid of them when they no longer suited him. Now, with a much younger wife, I figured he would want another change soon. As I was about to leave, Lisa put her gloved hand over mine. I braced myself, wondering what she wanted, probably some kind of help from me. I felt I needed to handle it with care to avoid any trouble from what she had observed. Unexpectedly, she just looked into my eyes, encouraging me to relax. The rehearsal had ended. I questioned why they called it a morning rehearsal when it didn't start until 11 and went past 1 o'clock. "Don't forget, Thina, tonight is the party at the club downtown. Wear something fun. There will be lots of people there," said Brenda Jameson. "Brenda is my best friend and has been trying to set me up for a long time. She would probably mention it during rehearsal if she weren't seated several rows away." "Bren, I'm just not sure I'm in the mood for that," I replied. "Goodness, I'm not expecting you to find your soulmate at a dance club. I just want you to come out and have some fun," she said loudly, catching the attention of the people around us. "Sorry," she continued in a softer voice. "Thena, you're 25. You're a quarter of the way through your life, but you haven't truly lived it. Your whole world revolves around music, and it's mostly other people's music. I don't want my best friend to go through life without really experiencing it." "I'm okay," I replied. "What will going to a dance club really do for me? With my luck, I'll just sit there alone while all the guys chase after women in short skirts, or I might get approached by someone who just wants to take advantage and then vanish." "And even if that did happen," she urged, "you'd have some fun and stop being so uptight. Plus, you could wear one of those skirts. Thena, you have a great figure. You should show it off. And as for the second part, maybe that's why. Excuse me, Thena. I care about you, but you've been acting a little strange. You need to get out there." "Is that my cue?" asked David K. Johnston. David was not only a talented trumpeter, but also known for his flirtations with many people in the orchestra. "Yeah, David K.," Brenda hissed. "If Thena hung out with you, she'd definitely have an unforgettable experience." "Well, remember me," he said with a grin as he walked away. Most of the musicians heard our conversation and knew that Brenda and David K. didn't get along well. They had a rocky relationship last year during the fall and winter. Brenda thought she was in love and confided her feelings to her parents back in Great Neck, dreaming of a future with him. But after Christmas, David K. had let her down. David K., as people called him, felt restless. The orchestra was on a mini tour of South America, and he wanted to be free. When Brenda expressed her hopes for their future, he made it clear that he wasn't looking for anything serious. "Forget him," Brenda said sharply. "If you want to find someone, you've got to put yourself out there. And please, Thena, have a little confidence." "Let your hair down. You look too formal." "What makes you think I want to meet someone?" I asked. "We all do," she replied, her tone softening. "Don't you want someone to share your evenings with?" "I have my cello for that," I smiled. "Is that going to keep you warm?" she asked. "Well, it's late spring," I joked. "It will be warmer every night until summer anyway. Then we'll all be complaining about the heat." "When was the last time you were in love?" she asked. "When I got my—" I started to say, but her warning look made me stop as she put her flute away. "If you say one more word about that cello," she warned. "Seriously, when was it?" "I guess grade school," I admitted, and her eyes widened in surprise. "It's been that long?" she asked, astonished. "You might as well be living alone. No wonder you're not dating. We need to change that. I think we should find you a partner." "No, wait," she said, her expression serious. "First, we need to get you some practice. We don't want to make things harder for you when it comes time for a real relationship. You need to have a—" "A what?" I asked. She smiled. "You need to have a summer adventure. Spend the next few months with a guy and learn what it's like to be in a relationship. Find out what you like and don't like. Then when summer ends, you can just part ways and move on. By fall, you'll be ready for something real." "But," I began. "But we're doing this," she insisted. "What kind of guys do you like?" As she spoke, we walked toward the elevator. I thought about her question as the doors opened and we stepped inside. I almost stumbled because the floor was uneven. As I steadied myself, I focused on my cello. Even though it was in a case, I worried about it getting damaged if I fell. Just then, an arm reached out to catch me and protect my cello. When I regained my balance, I looked up at my helper. It felt like time stopped and everything changed in that moment. "I can't believe this," said Brenda. "You must be the luckiest person." "You don't know the half of it," I replied, still fascinated by those striking blue eyes. "I tripped a couple of months ago," she continued. "I fell hard and my flute went flying. The only person around was a boring accountant, and he couldn't help me at all." "Thanks," I said as my helper helped me up. "No problem," he replied, fixing his glasses and heading toward Anton's office. "Who are you?" I asked, trying to block out Brenda's chatter. "I'm a senior account specialist from the bank that's supporting the orchestra this season. I specialize in international taxes and finance. You could say I'm Anton's new accountant." He smiled and then walked away. Brenda kept talking behind me. I watched the man until he turned the corner. "That's him," I whispered. "Who's him?" That's who?" Brenda asked, confused. "I've decided to go along with your plan," I said with a smile. "You did?" She smiled back. "What plan?" "The one about me having a summer adventure," I reminded her. "And you just met the man I want to share my summer adventure with." Thena, dear," she said, "shouldn't you choose someone a bit closer to your age? Maybe someone from your own generation. The idea here is for you to go out and enjoy life, not be with someone who might be just as dull as you." "If I'm doing this, and I mean if," I replied, "he's the right one. I can feel it." "Thena, don't get too serious," she said slowly. "Remember, he might not even be interested in you. He might already be in a relationship. Let's look at a few other options just in case." I just smiled at her, and we entered the elevator and headed to the parking lot. What I didn't tell Brenda was that she had good reasons to think this might not work out, but I wasn't worried about them. If he wasn't interested, I'd find a way to catch his attention. If he was with someone else, I would respect that, but the connection I felt when our eyes met was hard to ignore. Blake. I had met Anton Stravinsky a few times. He is a talented conductor and musician, but as a manager, he needed improvement. His records were incomplete, and he didn't keep track of some of his expenses. This meant that by the end of each month, the amount of cash he reported didn't match what he actually had. The bank was set to earn a good profit this season, and from the orchestra's tours, But that profit would shrink if we didn't know how much money we truly had. My job was to sort through Anton's mixed-up records and bring them up to date. I would also look into some issues he was having with his personal finances and taxes. Anton earned just slightly more than I did, so I knew that poor management could lead to trouble, even with a decent salary. I needed to work fast because the orchestra was leaving for Paris in a few days, and I really didn't want to travel with them. I had visited Paris several times before and preferred to stay home. It was just as beautiful as people said, full of charm and history. The trouble is, those things only seem special when you're young and in love. I'm not young anymore, and even though I've been married for over 20 years, I'm not sure we are still in love. If you ask me about my daughter, I could tell you without a doubt that my love for her grows every time I see her. But when it comes to my wife, I honestly can't say for sure. I knocked on Anton's door before trying the knob. It didn't turn, so I sighed in frustration. I checked my watch and walked down the hall to the next office. A woman looked up as I stood in her doorway. "I'm here to see Anton," I said, trying to appear friendly. "Good luck," she replied. "He usually has lunch right after rehearsal. If you're lucky, he'll be back in about an hour. Go across the street and have a cup of coffee. I'll have him call you if he returns sooner. Who are you?" "I'm Blake Livingston from the Hunt Bank," I replied, giving her one of my cards. The coffee shop across the street was lively with young artists and musicians. Watching them was eye-opening. I felt older than I truly was. In my younger days, I always focused on doing the right thing. I was dedicated to building a solid career and had little time for fun. At first, it was about making a name for myself. Then it became more important when I got married and when my daughter came along. I wanted her to have everything every little girl dreams of. Nothing was too good for my little one. "May I sit here?" a smooth voice asked. I looked up to see a woman around my age. Compared to the casual crowd, she felt familiar. After a moment, I realized her face looked a bit known to me. I nodded and stood to pull out a chair for her. "Please join me," I said. "I'm not great with names, but I feel like we know each other, don't we?" She sat down and smiled. "I'm not going to pretend to remember your name," I continued. "But we seem to run into each other a couple of times a year, right?" "You're right, Blake," she said. "We see each other every year at the Sisters of Virtue Gala. And maybe a few other times if we're lucky. I actually know your wife Clara better than I know you." "How come?" I asked, curious and hoping for a compliment. "To be honest," she said, "I've known Clara since we were in grade school. I've always admired her throughout our lives." She paused, as if what she was saying caused her some discomfort. "I've always tried to stay on the right path," she continued. I wished she would just say what was on her mind, as the wait was testing my patience. I looked at my watch, but time seemed to stand still. I knew I had at least another 45 minutes here. "I guess if it were me, I'd want someone to tell me," she said. "When it happened to me, someone did." "Told you what?" I asked. "That my husband was unfaithful," she replied. "So you mean your husband is not faithful?" I asked, surprised. "That's terrible, and I hope something happens to him, but why tell me?" "I'm not talking about him," she said. "It's you." "Your husband is unfaithful to me?" I asked, confused. "Is he one of my clients?" "No," she said gently. "Clara is. I was at our regular lunch at the hotel downtown. I wanted to visit a store in the Galleria but took the wrong elevator. I had been talking to my son on the phone, and he always frustrates me. So I decided to take the stairs back down. As I walked down the hallway, I saw a young man coming toward me. He looked very attractive to some. I have always preferred someone a bit tougher and older like you. Just as we were about to pass each other, he turned and opened the door to a room with a key. Once inside, he started talking to a woman in the room. My expression must have shown my lack of interest in the story because she quickly continued. "The woman in the room was Clara," she said, sounding almost pleased with herself, as if she just revealed something important. She must have felt let down when she noticed my face showed no surprise. "Was he a young doctor? An Indian man?" I asked. She nodded slowly. "You already knew?" she questioned. "If you're asking if I knew she was seeing a therapist who looks like the man you just described, yes, I did. Did I know we were meeting him in a hotel instead of his office? Yes, again. Would you like to know why?" The look of surprise on her face was entertaining. Because we, like you, belong to one of the oldest families in the area. Everything we do becomes news. We can't even have private issues. Clara and I have some problems in our marriage that we want to fix. I think she has been shopping too much and doesn't even remember what she buys. She thinks I work too much, and these issues are putting stress on us. To help us stay together for many more years, we're seeing a therapist. He is the Indian man I mentioned. She gulped loudly. The issue is that if we went to his office, there would be no privacy. Everyone would start wondering if we were getting a divorce. So we decided to meet in a hotel for some privacy. It actually costs us more, but it is worth it. I'm sorry, she said. I guess I also like to share rumors. At least you came to me first instead of spreading anything. That was the right thing to do, I replied. Well, I pride myself on being respectful, she said. I'm just glad it wasn't me you saw leaving the room with him. You might have thought I was involved in something wrong, I joked. She grabbed her purse and opened it quickly. Don't worry about it, I've got it, I said, noticing she looked upset as she hurried away from the table. After she left, I took a long breath and let it out, along with my worries. The only reason I could stay calm was that I had known about Clara's situation from the start. I suspected something was wrong last year, so I hired someone to investigate. She had a few issues over the past 3 years, and when this current situation began, I hadn't said anything to her about it. I had been struggling with what to feel. I loved Clara, at least I did, until I found out about her dishonesty. I still hadn't decided what to do, but I had stopped our close interactions. At first it was tough, but as time passed, it became easier, and now I hardly missed it at all. I had to admit that Clara had a pattern. She had acted this way before, more than once. My investigator thought she only changed in the summer. I wondered what she thought about herself. Did she see herself as a part-time partner? I wasn't sure. For the past year, I had started to think of Clara as just another part of my life. She was someone I had with me but didn't always need. Sooner or later, I would have to face the situation, but for now, it was simpler and less expensive to keep things as they were. As a financial planner, I understood how a divorce could greatly affect my finances. I wanted to be fair with Clara. After over 20 years together, I had seen her as a good partner for most of that time. I had no plans to hide anything or cheat her out of what she deserved. I knew that people can change over time. Maybe we had grown too far apart. We both had the right to be happy. I just didn't want any dramatic scenes. It hurt to think that I wasn't enough for her. At first, I tried to make excuses for her behavior. I considered all the reasons. I even told myself that maybe her hormones were off. But every test she had in the past few years showed her levels were normal for her age and size. Next, I thought she might be bored. Clara had never worked full-time but was involved in many committees and charities. There were times when she worked just as hard as I did, even if she wasn't paid. I considered the idea that maybe she was just looking for attention. I started to tell her I loved her more, buying her little gifts and hiding them around the house for her to find. That didn't help either. Eventually, I had to accept that it was about us, not being compatible. Clara needed someone who could fulfill her emotional needs in a way I hadn't. I had read that as women grow older, their needs can change a lot. On some level, I could understand that. Even though it hurt my pride to think I couldn't give her what she wanted, I had to be realistic. Men and women often have different emotional needs. I remembered when we were younger, and I wanted more closeness than she did. But she never turned me away. If she could meet my needs back then, I should understand her wanting something different now. I wasn't thinking of divorcing her over simple misunderstandings. What really affected my feelings for her was the fact that she had not been faithful. After being together for over 20 years, during which I had always supported her and offered everything she needed, and even more than she asked for, my heart felt broken. I remember our early days, living in a rundown apartment. Night after night, we sat on our balcony, listening to the sounds of sirens that reminded us of our situation. We shared our dreams and hopes, promising that we didn't need much because we had each other. Now we live in a large house with all the modern comforts, but we no longer feel close. Somehow, we have grown apart, and Clara couldn't come to me to share her feelings. I would have done anything to meet her needs. Why didn't she trust me enough to let me try? Our emotional bond seemed strong until about a year ago when it started to fade. She would sometimes suggest that she wanted to reconnect, but I mostly acted like I was too busy. In the end, the loss of trust was what ruined our marriage. I worked long hours not because I wanted to, but because my job required it. Clara enjoyed the benefits of my hard work. She should have been ready to face the challenges that came with it. As I walked back toward Anton's office, I made a choice. The meeting with that woman whose name I can't even recall was the last straw. For the past year, I had been an unwilling part of Clara's choices. It was time to move on. Maybe not seeing Anton today was a sign leading me forward. Perhaps a trip to Paris for a couple of weeks would be best for me. That would give me time to think and make clear decisions while I worked with my lawyers on the divorce. They would always be just a phone call away, and with video calls, no one was really out of reach. 3 days later, the girls called a special meeting to discuss the gala and assign tasks. I hoped that, as usual, I would be chosen to lead the marketing team. I really enjoyed working on advertising and promotions for the event. Oddly enough, I hadn't reached out to Stephen. He had left me several messages and texts showing concern for my well-being. Deep down, I sensed he needed something, maybe financial help. Part of me enjoyed the excitement of being with a charming young man who seemed devoted to me. But I knew that while others might think he was my son or a younger admirer, the truth was more complicated. Then there was the money my husband gave me to spend as I wanted. More and more I realized how foolish I was. The truth is that letting go of Stephen and my dream was harder than I thought. Even if I ended things with him, I would probably just find someone else. And there was the unsettling thought that everything these young men liked about me came from Blake. Maybe soon, one of them would just go straight to my husband. I found myself laughing a little at the thought until my gaze landed on Lisa's angry eyes. She clearly had something bothering her and was taking it out on me. This issue between us had gone too far, and I knew I had to address it. I decided to wait until we had a break. Another thing weighing on my mind was Blake. For the last 3 days, he had seemed distant. When our daughter visited, he was his usual self with her, but he barely paid attention to me. And when he did, he seemed careful with his words. I sensed there was something going on. Carlita, who led the committee, finally called for a break and some snacks. I got up and walked to the refreshment table, then took hold of Lisa's arm and pulled her into the hallway. "Why are you looking at me like that?" I asked. "Okay, you saw me in the hotel room 3 days ago. It's not what you think. What do you want from me?" She yanked her arm away, eyeing me fiercely. "I know about your therapy," she said sharply. "You're lucky, you know. I don't want anything from you. Honestly, I don't believe you're good enough for your husband. I'm tired of working hard just to keep up while it seems so easy for you. I thought I'd tell your husband what I saw. Even if he doesn't choose me, I could still make things difficult for you." I was taken aback. She actually wanted to come between my husband and me. "Listen, Lisa, I'll do anything you ask," I said. "Just don't tell anyone you saw me." She held my gaze steadily. "Clara, I know you don't always pick up on things quickly, but don't think I'm foolish too. I already talked to your husband about what happened, and he told me about your counseling and why you're meeting in a hotel, so stay away from me. If your counseling doesn't help, be careful. I'm younger, and I can treat your husband better." Then she turned and walked away. I stood there for a long moment, watching her leave. It felt like an icy grip around my heart. My blood ran cold, making me feel lifeless. For so long, I thought I had everything figured out. I was the smartest person in the room, but nothing lasts forever, and now my worst fears were real. I didn't understand what Lisa claimed Blake told her, but I knew he was aware of what she had seen. Even if he tried to protect me, he would want answers. The problem was, I didn't know how much he really knew. After that, I couldn't focus on anything. I could feel Lisa's glare from across the table, and time seemed to drag on. I swear there was a moment when time seemed to move backward. Even while I tried to take notes and pay attention, my mind wouldn't focus. I kept picturing Blake at home, packing his things. I imagined him leaving, and I wanted to tell him that the people I'd been with didn't really matter. They were just distractions until I could share my true feelings with him. Blake needed to know he was the only one I truly loved. But I couldn't just rush in and tell him everything. What if I opened up and asked for forgiveness, only to find out he didn't understand? Lisa might do something like that. She could be clever but not foolish. It would be just like her to make me believe she'd shared everything with Blake when she hadn't. I could end up looking foolish for believing her. She had already doubted if I was right for Blake, so once things calmed down, she might try to win him over. She had lost her own unfaithful husband and might want someone who would be loyal. In Blake, she could find someone committed and a way to improve her life. I needed to be careful. I waited for the meeting to end and skipped our usual chat afterward. I drove home, and as I pulled into the circular driveway, I noticed Blake's Mustang was already there. In the past 10 years, he hadn't come home in the middle of the day very often. I hurried inside and searched the house for him. When I reached the living room, I saw our daughter sitting on the sofa, staring at the TV with a sad look. I wondered what was bothering her and why she wasn't at her apartment. I didn't have time to talk to her now, so I moved past her and continued my search for Blake. She didn't say anything, and while I was relieved, I still worried about my family. I finally found Blake. Just as I feared, he was packing clothes into several suitcases. He had garment bags, suitcases, and even a bag for his toiletries. He also had his laptop and iPad with him. Blake was not just casually leaving, he was preparing to go for good. He looked up and saw me standing in the doorway. "I was going to call you," he said. "Why call?" I replied, trying hard not to cry. "Why not tell me in person? Don't I deserve that?" "What difference does it make?" he asked. "It's not a good thing, but it happens all the time. I'm surprised it doesn't happen more often. The world feels so chaotic. Everyone wants things their own way." "Blake, it was never like that. Can't we talk about this? I hate to say it, but it really isn't what you think," I said. I hoped that calm Blake would come through, giving me a chance to talk. "After all these years together, you can't just leave me like this. What am I supposed to do?" "I thought you'd go to your club meetings and keep busy like you do when I travel for work. I knew this trip might happen, but I really believed that if I could go through Anton's papers today, I could stop it. But he seems to jump around like most creative people. I have to go to Paris, and I don't know how long I'll be gone. It might be 2 weeks," he said. "You know I dislike traveling. I hate being away from my routine." "This is a work trip?" Relief washed over me as I asked. He glanced back, still packing, and nodded. His face was calm, but I could sense something else there. For the first time in our marriage, I couldn't figure out what Blake was thinking. I wondered how long it had been since I really looked at him and tried to understand his feelings. "What did you think I was doing?" he asked, a hint of a smile appearing. "Oh, nothing," I answered, smiling back. At that moment, I felt a wave of relief. I realized that I loved him more than I had thought. I would do anything to keep him in my life. From that instant, I decided there would be no distractions. I could not let this chance slip away. Someone told me a joke that made me a bit uneasy. I stepped closer to him, wanting to be sure he was real and that we were okay. But he moved away from me and turned to face me. "Let me guess," he said. "You heard from your friend with the name I can't remember. She told you she saw you in the hotel with your new friend. Stephen, right?" My heart sank and I felt embarrassed. It's odd, isn't it? I've seen that woman at all your charity events for years, but I can't remember her name. Yet I remember Stephen's name easily, he said. "Blake, I'm so. How long have you known?" But then they come and go after just a few months. They are like brief moments that leave no mark. "How long have you—" I started again. "I thought once summer ended you'd want to be closer to me again like you tried last year," he explained. "But I just couldn't reach out. That's why it felt like we were apart." Blake. I was too stunned by where this was heading. I planned to talk about this when I got back from Paris, so in a way it's good that we had this conversation now. While I'm gone, we can both think about what we want to do next. "I don't usually make decisions quickly, and I need time to think about my future and if there's a place for you in it," he said. His voice felt colder than ever. "Blake, please don't leave like this," I managed to say. "How else should I leave?" he asked. "What do you want me to do, Clara? Should I say goodbye and pretend everything will be fine? That wouldn't be fair. Things are changing, Clara." He picked up his bag and went out of the room. He made several trips up and down the stairs to get all of his things. Our daughter grabbed one of his bags and brought it down for him. I should have helped too, but I was too shocked. I didn't want him to leave and start a life without me. I wanted him to stay and talk about our marriage and what he hoped for us. "Can I drive to the airport with you?" I asked. "Maybe I should get a ticket and go to Paris with you so we can work things out while you're not busy," he replied. He paused and looked at me. "Clara, you don't need time to think," he said. "I do. I've been pushing my feelings aside for so long that now that I've finally let them out, I really need to think about what I want." "What do you mean by what you want?" I asked. "Are you saying if you'll forgive me or if we need help? Honestly, I'd rather have you just forgive me. I don't want to dig into my feelings with anyone. Everyone I know who sought help ended up more confused, and I like things how they are." "That's not what I meant," he said. "Good," I replied. "Are you thinking about whether you'll just forgive me or whether I should do something for your forgiveness? Because if that's what you want, you might be let down, Blake. I haven't learned anything new that could change things. You're probably skilled at that. The difference is that at least he has shown interest in spending time with me. So if you expect me to be different, think again. I've never done anything like that with anyone else." "I'm sorry if you're disappointed in me for not being someone else, Blake," I said. "But there was nothing wrong with us until you pulled away." "That's not what I need to think about," he said. "Either you're not being honest or you just don't remember correctly. I stopped being close to you almost a year ago, but you were already involved with someone else by then. What I really need to figure out," he continued, "is whether there's enough to save or if we should just go our separate ways." I sank back into a sitting position on the couch. My daughter moved her foot as if it hurt to be near me. She jumped up just before Blake closed the door and gave him a quick goodbye. "Bring me something from Paris, Daddy. Call me," she said as he left. She went back to watching TV. I found myself wondering again where our family had gone. I sat on the couch feeling upset, and it seemed like my daughter didn't notice. I let out a cry, unsure of what I wanted. I suppose I needed someone to talk to about my worries. I cried again, and her expression changed. "Okay, that's enough," she said firmly. "I'm going home." "But why?" I asked. "Mom, this is the final episode of my show," she replied. "All your crying is ruining it for me. I have to be at work early in the morning and everyone will be talking about this." "It's saved on the DVR, Selena," I explained. "You can watch it later. Didn't you hear what's going on? Your dad is thinking about changing things in our family. Doesn't that matter to you?" "Mom, it's not Dad who's causing problems," she said. "That's you. He's just trying to deal with everything. I didn't just catch bits of your conversation. I heard it all. I guess I should feel upset, but I would have to think better of you to feel that way." Her voice was sharp. She didn't sound like any 22-year-old I knew. In fact, with her higher voice, I could almost mistake her for her father. "I need to consider how this affects me," she said, but I didn't quite understand what she meant. "I'm an adult now," she continued. "I have my degree in finance and accounting. I'm getting real-world experience before going for my master's degree. I'm not a kid anymore. I won't be treated like a pawn if there's a separation. The only way this matters to me is if Dad keeps the house, I can still visit. If you do, I'll need to find a new place. It's simply practical, Mom." She stood up and started putting on her shoes. I felt hurt and couldn't believe my child would talk to me like this. I gently placed my hand on her shoulder to talk, but she moved away. "Selena, do you even realize who you're speaking to? You sound just like your father. You don't seem to understand how emotional this is. These changes affect our lives. I'm your mother, and I deserve some respect," I told her. She pushed my hand away firmly, showing her strength and independence. "I'm not a kid anymore, Mom," she said. "You can't control me, and I don't like it when you try to." "Yelling won't help you in this situation. It's true that Dad and I see things the same way. We have similar personalities and studied the same subjects in school. We view things differently than you do. We look at things from a logical perspective. You don't understand because you've never needed to support yourself or our family. I remember how my mother always seemed to ask for what she wanted. My father would work extra hours to make her happy. "But," I started to say. "But nothing," she cut me off. "That's why I wanted to work after finishing my degree. I wanted to stand on my own 2 feet. I want to contribute and be part of life, just like anyone else. Many of my friends have parents who are divorced. I've heard the same excuses you're trying to make for Dad more times than I can count. What will you say when you talk to him? Are you going to say you were just bored and needed some excitement? Or maybe that you were just curious and wanted to try something once? The truth is, the only people who can afford to be bored nowadays are those who don't put in any effort. I do work, I argued back. I'm part of several committees and That's not work, she interrupted before I could finish. Those are just groups organizing events for good causes. A real job is somewhere you have to go and do tasks you might not enjoy to earn a paycheck. You don't just stroll into a job, sip coffee, chat about the latest news, and then leave when you want. You've never had a real job, Mother. But what we do is meaningful, I responded. We help others. Mother, you and your friends plan events for charities. You say you help, and sometimes you do, but it seems more about making yourselves feel important. I doubt you've really made a difference for anyone all these years. That's not true, I insisted. We've helped thousands. Last year you raised $50,000 with your big gala, but it cost you $43,000 to hold it. You set aside part for future needs. This means only a small amount actually went to charity. If you truly want to help, try a different approach. Choose a charity or a specific person to support. Get a job, and since you don't need the money, donate part of your salary each week. You could change someone's life for the better. It's not just about the money, I said back. No, it seems more about feeling good while exaggerating what you do, she replied. Charity starts at home, Mother. Have you ever thought about how Dad feels about your efforts? I guess I never thought I'd be caught, I acknowledged. If I had, I might have done things differently. But it felt like time was slipping away. You and Dad were always busy with your own goals while I should have found a job or a hobby, she suggested gently. Can't you understand my side? I asked. I know you're similar to Dad, but you're a woman too. Don't you respect how I feel? Mom, you're not being consistent, she replied. You've always told me to find someone who loves and respects me. You taught me what to look for in a partner. But you haven't followed that advice yourself. You had someone who cared for you, and you made choices that showed you didn't appreciate that love. I respect you as my mother, but as a woman, I feel let down. Does this person you're with treat you well? She asked. I'm sorry, but like you said, we often focus on practical things and forget about feelings. Please tell me more because something seems off. He's about your age, maybe a bit older, I said. She looked at me in shock. Is he good looking? She asked. Does he have a nice personality? Yes, he's very charming, I replied, but her face remained unchanged. How much of Dad's money are you giving him? She asked coldly. He cares for me, I insisted. I'm just helping him while he's in school. She shook her head. Mom, you really need to think differently, she said. If he's attractive and has a decent personality, he probably has plenty of choices. He wouldn't need to be with someone who isn't showing real love. Next time you meet, try not to offer help. It might take some time, but if you stop, you could see if the feelings are real or just for convenience. She left without looking back. I don't think she cared about my feelings at all. Blake. I had spent most of my travel time sleeping and studying. During the first flight, the long layover, and my connecting flight to Paris, I avoided thinking about what awaited me at home. I had transferred all the information from the private investigator about Clara onto my iPad. The data was ready for when I needed it, but I didn't really need it now. Instead, I focused on the orchestra's records and, near the end of my trip, Anton's scattered financial notes. I needed at least 3 or 4 days to organize the orchestra's financial records and create a spreadsheet to track all income and expenses. They would be in Paris for 10 days, but only had 3 performances. There would be plenty of time between shows for Anton and me to go over everything so that when we returned to the US, I could hand this off to one of our account managers. Anton's finances were in much worse shape. It looked like he hadn't filed all his taxes. In some years, he had only paid his federal taxes and owed a lot to the state. In other years, it seemed he hadn't paid taxes at all. There were notes about investments he had made, and it seemed he had acted impulsively with an online broker, forgetting his username and password for those sites. If he couldn't find that information or the websites, there was likely no way to get any money, if it existed, out of those accounts and into trustworthy companies. I would think about Anton's money problems after I got the orchestra back in order. As I walked through the busy airport to collect my luggage, I felt someone tap me on the shoulder. I turned and looked down. At 5'10", I am not the tallest guy, but the woman wanting my attention was about 5 inches shorter, so I had to look down to see her face. She was beautiful, but I didn't know her. I thought she might be a local wanting to tell me something or sell me something. "I don't speak French," I said. She crinkled her nose and smiled. She glanced at her friend beside her, and I started to recognize her. She bounced up and down nervously a couple of times, and I noticed the large cello case at her feet. I smiled back at her. "I don't speak French either," she said. "Don't tell me you don't recognize me. How many women have you helped while carrying their cellos?" "Only one," I said, surprised. "But you aren't." I looked closely at her face. She still had those beautiful eyes, but her face looked completely different. She seemed much younger. Her lips looked softer, and she appeared happier. She also had on some makeup. But the biggest change was her hair and clothing. Last time I had seen her, she wore loose, shapeless clothes and had her hair tied up simply. She had seemed to be in her mid-30s. But the woman in front of me had long, lovely brown hair with soft highlights that shone beautifully and moved gently with her. That beautiful hair reached nearly to her waist. She wore a pretty, light summer dress that suited her well. I felt the need to adjust my briefcase as she stood there. "What's your name?" she asked. "Blake Livingston," I replied. "I assume you are staying at the same hotel as the rest of the orchestra and staff?" she asked. The question sounded very formal, but she asked it playfully, like she was enjoying the moment. I just nodded, and she turned and walked away. She looked over her shoulder and playfully said, "My friends will contact you." If I had dropped my briefcase then, it would have been a very embarrassing moment. Here I was, 45 years old, standing in the middle of a busy airport with a big, silly grin on my face. That line, "My friends will contact you," felt like something out of a classic story. But the look and gentle smile on her face told me that we would see each other again soon. All I could do was watch as her short friend joined her, and they rolled their luggage and instrument cases through the airport. I realized they were heading toward the shuttle buses that would take them to the hotel. I walked to the car rental agency. The rental agency looked like every other one in airports around the world. It was plain and practical. If I had been hoping for something special or a friendly face with a unique touch, I was let down. The woman behind the counter had a bright smile and a cheerful attitude, which was very different from how I felt. She seemed determined to help me, even though I was quite confused. Of course, I was feeling sad about my marriage. I was stuck in a place between letting it end slowly over the years or just ending it now. My confusion also came from not understanding what those two young musicians were talking about back at the airport. I was also unsure why I felt drawn to the slimmer one. I looked up at the friendly woman behind the counter again and handed her my reservation slip. Her smile brightened even more, which only added to my discomfort. It felt like an act. Hertz likely didn't pay that well, and I doubted she truly cared about making me happy. I'd bet that 5 minutes after I left, she wouldn't remember me. "You've ordered the classic Americano car," she said. "I did?" I asked, thinking my secretary had played a trick on me. She nodded and smiled even bigger. To my surprise, she stepped out from behind the counter. From the way she spoke without a noticeable accent, I thought I could guess where she was from. She had a very ordinary look about her. There was nothing particularly striking about her features. I smiled back at her, curious about her background. I followed her through a door into a connected indoor garage. "You have 3 choices," she began. Before she could continue, I had already made up my mind. "I want that one," I said eagerly, worried that someone else might come in and take it. "But I need to explain them," she said, her smile fading a little. "The one I want is the beautiful Highland Green 1968 Mustang GT 390 Fastback," I stated firmly. "I was supposed to say that," she replied, her enthusiasm dropping. "I'll need to check if it's available," she said. I expected her to come back and tell me it was already taken. I was feeling playful. I leaned closer to her and said, "I want that car, right now. My company does a lot of business with Hertz." "What do you have to say?" "You're in for a surprise," she replied. "Really?" I asked, and she nodded. But why? I pressed. I'll pay more. It won't make a difference, she said with a smirk. But why? I asked again. Because the Bullet doesn't have the pony badge, she explained, tossing me the keys. Drive it carefully, enjoy yourself, she added. I looked at her and she smiled genuinely. It made her seem much more friendly than before. You're American, right? I asked. Absolutely, she answered. I was surprised to meet an American in Paris. I glanced at her name tag and saw G. Gershwin. If I had just looked at her last name, I might have thought she was German. I drove past the airport and headed to the hotel. The map in the car was very useful. It had all the main hotels highlighted. There was also a paper that said I could get sightseeing tours and city maps at my hotel. As I admired the beautiful buildings and sights on my way to the hotel, I felt I had already seen enough. I was eager to focus on my work. When I checked into my suite, I asked about Anton's room and learned that he had been trying to reach me and had left several messages. I listened to them and found out that Anton had set aside time for us to work on our finances. It was a good plan. We would work for 2 to 3 hours each morning before his early rehearsal. This would leave me free to work on the books for most of the afternoon. For me, working on finances was like therapy. I could study the numbers and figure out where we had gone wrong. I had been wondering what had caused it all. Finding out that someone you trusted has broken their promises is a terrible feeling. When you lose a partner to an accident or illness, it's usually easier since those things are unexpected. Cheating, on the other hand, makes you doubt yourself and wonder if you could have done something differently. It leads you to question all of your other relationships. Anyone you meet might be viewed with suspicion, not because of their actions, but because of your past experiences. It's even more confusing when they tell you that they still care. I was pulled from my thoughts when someone behind me asked, "What took you so long to get here?" I turned around and saw 2 women. One of them, the shorter, fuller one I had seen before. The other looked older and thinner. In fact, she seemed older than me. Both were smiling. "Nice," said the older woman. "Not sure about the suit, though. It makes him seem a bit formal." The larger one handed me a handwritten note that was nice to look at. I smiled because it reminded me of my school days. I read the note. It was an invitation to meet at a place called Coffee City. It seemed to be some kind of American-style coffee shop just down the road from the hotel. I pictured it as a cozy spot where young people gathered, enjoyed various coffee drinks, and worked on their laptops. I imagined young men trying to impress young women, while the women pretended to be uninterested after spending time getting ready. I remembered how my daughter would spend a long time in front of the mirror, putting on just enough makeup to look naturally pretty. Once I made the big mistake of asking her why she didn't just go without it. "Daddy," she said, "are you serious? I can't go out like that." In that moment, I felt thankful to be older and married. I had no intention of being single again and facing the challenges of modern dating. I didn't want to share every little detail of my life online. It wasn't anyone's business if I decided to part ways with Clara. That was our matter. "Well," the larger young woman smiled, "she's waiting for an answer." "I don't think so," I replied, shaking my head. Her eyes widened, and she looked surprised. "Why not?" she asked, seeming to take it quite personally. I began to wonder what made her want me to meet her friend at the coffee shop. "I just don't have the time for it," I replied. Then I opened my door and stepped inside the hotel room. She turned around and walked away with her older friend, who was struggling to keep up. The older woman glanced back at me with an amused expression. Less than 5 minutes later, I turned as someone entered the room. I had left the door open, expecting the bellman with my luggage, but instead, I saw her standing in the doorway. She was still in the same dress from the airport. Her presence made the room feel different, almost more refined, just by her standing there. "Why don't you want to have coffee with me?" she asked, picking up our earlier conversation as if there had been no pause. She didn't greet me, just got right to it. Oddly enough, it felt natural, as if we already had some kind of connection. She gazed at me from across the room, and it felt like the air thinned around us. The air conditioning continued to run, but somehow it felt warmer. I stumbled over my words as I tried to reply. She moved closer, gliding effortlessly across the room until we were near enough to speak quietly. That doesn't help," she said. "I don't have time," I replied. You don't have anything planned until tomorrow, she said. I checked. Anton is occupied with some French woman he met last visit. She looked at me with a different approach. You saved me from a bad fall and maybe hurting my cello. I just wanted to buy you a coffee to say thanks. Plus, you don't seem like a regular accountant. What's wrong with accountants? I asked. They lack spirit, she said, lightly touching my shirt. There's too much strength under that suit for a typical accountant, she added. What do you mean by lack spirit? I questioned, stepping back a bit. Accountants know the price of everything but the worth of nothing, she replied. I had heard this before, but it struck me differently coming from her. When I stepped back, she moved forward, closing the distance between us. Sorry for the wait with your bags, sir, said the bellman loudly. He wore the same look that French waiters often have in films. Dressed in a small hat placed at an angle, he resembled an old-fashioned bellhop with a drawn-on mustache. I glanced at my bags lying on the floor and checked the time. I believed in rewarding good service. I usually tipped well for excellent work and was less generous for okay service. I had checked in at the front desk over half an hour ago. I was the only guest with bags waiting for delivery. I wondered if this was his first day on the job or if he had just taken a long time to find my room. I was about to ask why it took so long when the atmosphere around us shifted again. Her fingers, which had been gently touching my face, came together with the others on her hand as I turned towards the bellman. She didn't move away, putting us in a surprisingly close position. I started to wonder if she noticed my wedding ring. That thought frustrated me. I wasn't upset with her. I was annoyed with Clara. Why would I expect a stranger to notice the ring when my wife didn't even seem to care? I put my arm around her waist and looked back at the bellman. I had to admit he showed a kind of bravery that impressed me. His arm shook from holding it out for so long, but his eyes stayed steady. I pulled out a few small bills from my pocket and handed them to him. Thank you, sir, he said. His tone felt like it meant something different. He bowed and turned toward the door. Should I leave the door open? I asked. I wasn't sure if I wanted it open for my safety or hers. It didn't matter. I noticed the smile on his face as he closed the door. Where were we? She said, looking into my eyes. There was a strong connection that felt intense, similar to what had happened before. I tried to brush it off as simple attraction. I had heard that attraction could be strong and quick, while true feelings like love were steadier and deeper. I had no intention of risking my marriage for what might just be a passing feeling. Some men react strongly to changes in their lives. Was I starting to experience something similar at 45? All I knew was that at that moment, I was attracted to her. I tried to push that thought away and change the subject. Okay, I said. Why don't you tell your friends where you'll be while I change? I'll meet you in 10 minutes. Do I need to drive? You have a car? She asked with a smile. I couldn't quite tell what she was thinking. You don't need to drive. It's just a block away. Go out the door, turn right, and it's 10 minutes from here, she said, pointing at me playfully. Don't make me come find you again. As I changed out of my suit, I wondered what I was getting into. I thought that once I stepped into the coffee shop, I would feel like it was all a setup. I dressed casually in comfortable pants and a polo shirt and put on my most relaxed shoes. For a man my age, I felt good. Following her directions, I found myself outside Coffee City, still questioning why I was there. In the time since I last saw her, I had tried to think about my troubled marriage, but instead, my thoughts kept going back to her, a person whose name I didn't even know. I looked around inside the cafe and noticed she wasn't at one of the easy tables outside. Instead, she was deep inside with a group of people. I recognized some from orchestra practice. I felt nervous about making my way through the crowd to reach her, concerned about what might happen. Just as I was about to turn around, she spotted me. Her face lit up, and she smiled, waving me over. As I walked closer, I realized I didn't feel out of place. The cafe was full of people of all ages, enjoying their drinks and chatting happily. When I reached her table, she stood up, surprising me. I thought something important was about to happen, but she just took my hand. A younger man with a musical instrument case glanced at me but said nothing. I'll see you later, she said casually, and led me to an open table. We could have stayed back there with your friends, I said. That way, if I left, you'd still have your seat. What do you mean by that? She asked as we got settled. I mean, I replied with a smile. We can have a cup of coffee or something and you can tell me why I'm here. She looked at me for a moment, unsure. At first, I just wanted to thank you for... She started, pausing for a moment. Serendipity, she said, shrugging and spreading her arms wide. You're here for the excitement, I responded, surprised. She moved her chair closer until she was sitting right beside me, making me feel a little uncomfortable. People can be fake, she said, pointing to a group at another table. Do you see those people over there? You're talking about your friends, right? I asked. Those people aren't my friends, she clarified. Until yesterday, I hardly spoke to any of them. Brenda is my friend. She pointed out a woman she often spent time with. It's mostly because of you that I'm here with them, she said straightforwardly. Maybe they are your friends. I see them almost every day. Some are young, some are old. They gather and chat about everything and nothing. I usually just watch. It feels strange. Everyone changes. I feel stuck. I'm like a solo cello outside of a group. I nodded, getting her point, even though she referred to her orchestra. I often thought about my connections with my coworkers, too. I have a secret. It's time I tell you you've made me feel alive, she said, surprising me. Brenda and I talked. She thinks I've been on the sidelines for too long. She believes I should dive into life and feel its pleasures and pains myself. But don't you experience life just by living? I questioned. She squeezed my arm and laughed. I'm 25, she said. I've never had a serious relationship since elementary school. It feels awkward these days not to have had someone special. People don't see it as being pure anymore. They think it shows a lack of interest. I guess I've never thought about that. My music has always been enough for me. My cello is my main focus. What about you? I asked. Maybe it's your friends? I shook my head. It's probably my daughter and my cars, I said. What kind of cars? She asked, smiling. Mustangs, I replied. Oh no, she said playfully. Not another one? My dad had one. I have 6, I stated, and she laughed heartily. This could work, she said. I like seeing you out of that suit. You look much more friendly without it. Contacts, I replied. Anyway, Brenda and I talked about my need to find someone special for the summer. Since I don't have much relationship experience, we thought a practice partner would help. I raised an eyebrow, unsure. Please don't be upset, she added. I mean a light summer relationship, nothing serious. I just want to learn how dating works. It will have a clear start, middle, and end like a song. We've already finished the introduction, she smiled. What do you mean, baoui? I asked, surprised. Don't you want to be my summer practice partner? She replied. I'm married, I quickly pointed out. I don't mind, she said. Isn't that questionable? I asked. You seem like a good person. I am a good person, she confirmed. When I make choices, I listen to music. A song comes to mind. Good people go to heaven, adventurers go everywhere. I want to explore everything. I chuckled at her words. So I was about to tell Brenda how silly I thought the idea was when I tripped and almost fell. In that moment, as I worried about my cello, I looked into your eyes and realized maybe this idea could work. I think it might be good for both of us, she suggested. You seem to carry your own troubles. I sense a similar loneliness in you. I nodded, thinking about what she said. I can see your point. You're a young woman wanting to learn more about yourself, but I'm an older married man. And that matters why? She asked. You're what, 40? 45, I replied. 50 is the new 30, she said with a grin. What about that guy at your table? I inquired. Her expression changed as she looked at the man I pointed out. He's not a nice person, she replied. He treated my friend Brenda poorly and then cut ties. He only wants shallow relationships. Remember how I said those people at the table aren't my friends? Yes, you mentioned they were just my acquaintances, I said. I still don't understand why. She smiled and reached across the table to take my hand. Did you feel anything when you caught me? She asked. I did, and it was a special moment. I knew I wanted you as my partner for this. I nodded, a smile forming on my lips. I noticed, I admitted slowly. She smiled, bringing her head closer. That was the plan, she said. But it also brought unwanted attention. You don't have to decide right away, but I don't see any harm for you, and it would be great for me. I noticed her eyes looking up. I turned to see what she was watching. A guy from the other table was standing over us. We were so focused on each other that I hadn't noticed him come over. "Hey, Athena," he said. "We're all thinking about going to the beach tomorrow. What do you think?" "I think you should enjoy yourselves and stop worrying about what I'm thinking," she replied. I hadn't said anything, but he looked at me with annoyance. The guy wasn't backing down. "I was just curious about what you wanted to do," he said. "I'd like to finish my conversation and be left alone," she responded sweetly. He left after shooting me one last glare. We resumed our conversation and spent the afternoon talking and laughing like old friends. We were interrupted a few times as different people came over to our table. She shared stories about her life and her love for music. As we talked, I found myself sharing my feelings about Clara and how I felt the need to escape to Paris to think things over. She listened well, and I could have stayed there for hours, enjoying our connection. I noticed her expression change as she started to say something, but paused when I talked about what Clara had done. She was quite different from what I had expected. It surprised me that she encouraged me to think about a summer relationship while also believing that Clara's behavior was wrong. "You'd be doing this to get back at her since she started it," she said. "That doesn't make it right," I replied. "But if you think of it this way, you were left out of her thoughts when she cheated. So maybe she deserves to be left out of your plans too," she argued. "How would this actually work?" I asked, curious. "We would just start spending time together. The relationship would grow until we decide to end it when summer is over," she explained. "It would be up to you if you want to tell your wife. For now, we just act naturally." "And how do we know when it's time to stop?" I inquired. "We could choose a date, either randomly or at the end of summer. We are adults and know it might hurt a little. If we're invested emotionally, it will be tough to say goodbye," she said. I nodded, understanding. "I want that," she added. "I want to feel the mix of happiness and sadness that love can bring." Her words reminded me of the sadness I felt whenever I remembered Clara's choices. "No, you really don't," I said, trying to keep my emotions in check. A tear slipped down my cheek as I asked, "What about being close to each other?" She replied, her voice steady. "We'll definitely include that." At that moment, my phone rang. I looked down and saw it was Clara calling. Just seeing her name made me angry, and I knew I had to make a choice. "I'm in," I said firmly. She gathered our coffees, and we linked arms as we stood. "To new beginnings and hard endings," she said cheerfully. The rest of the afternoon flew by as we got to know one another better. We laughed and chatted like we were old friends. Athena's fellow orchestra members, including a guy who seemed a bit off, glanced our way a few times. As the sun began to set, she leaned a bit closer. It felt like I made a choice I couldn't easily change. There was a moment of unexpected bond, and I found myself wanting to learn more about her. Suddenly, my rival showed up. We both looked at him, and Athena gave him a dismissive glance. "We're leaving," he said bluntly. "So go," she replied with a smile, clearly unfazed. He nodded and walked away. Athena. It was a beautiful first night. Blake and I walked to a cozy little restaurant that served Italian food. I hadn't had many first dates, but this one felt different. It was like we were good friends who decided to take things further. At first, he seemed a bit shy, but soon I noticed he reached for me just as often as I reached for him. We ended the evening on the rooftop of our hotel, sitting close together and watching the city lights. It was amazing how quickly we became at ease with each other. Our time together became the best part of my day. I thought about what we were doing and where it might lead. I remembered how I felt when I first met him and the way he looked at me at the airport. Then I thought about everything that happened that day. In Coffee City, we found a little piece of paradise. Our afternoon was so perfect that if it had been my last day, I couldn't think of a way to make it any better. He looked at his watch and sighed. "I'm giving you just one more thing," I said. I jumped into his lap for one last sweet moment. Those moments felt special, surrounded by a warmth that made me feel cared for. "You keep that," I said. "Don't give it back." He smiled at me, and I had never felt so appreciated. I had one question in my mind. "Are you taking me home?" I asked. He looked at me, and the silence was full of meaning. I could tell he wanted to stay, but something else was on his mind. "I have to go," he said. "You don't need to wake up until noon, but I have to be up by 9, and I have things to take care of." "Don't give me that," I said, not wanting to say goodbye. "What's the real reason you don't want to stay?" "What do you mean?" he asked. "I do want to." "Everyone can tell that," I replied. "They probably sense it." A wave of emotions washed over me as I felt our connection grow deeper. "No matter what, even with how we met and our situation, I believe you're a good person. Good people usually don't rush into things." "Blake, I have another song reference for you," I said. "Do you remember a group called The Knack?" He looked confused. They had a famous song called My Sharona. Suddenly, a light went on in his eyes. The B-side of My Sharona was called Good Girls Don't, but I do. "Seriously, Athena," he said. He gently held my hand and looked into my eyes. "Today and tonight were amazing. My head is spinning, but I want to give you time to think about this, so we don't rush into something that might not be right." I could see he was serious and realized his intentions were real. We walked into the hotel in silence, the first quiet moment we had since we met that afternoon. This was our first disagreement, and I felt frustrated, thinking he was wrong. In a moment of understanding, he seemed to sense my feelings. "Trust me," he said. "One day you might be glad we didn't do anything tonight." I felt annoyed, but kept it to myself. "And one day you might regret we didn't," I replied. "You'll wish you hadn't wasted a night when we could have been together." "Is this our first argument?" he asked seriously. I just pouted and nodded. "Will I see you tomorrow?" he asked. "Nothing will stop that," I said. He leaned in and kissed me gently one last time. When he pulled away, I held onto his fingers for a moment longer. "Where have you been?" Brenda shouted. "I've been worried sick. I called you 10 times before I realized our phones don't work here." "I'll get you Blake's number," I said. "His phone works everywhere. Good night." "Where were you?" she asked again. "What happened?" "You look terrible. Did he do something to you? Should I talk to him? Maybe I'll ask David K. to handle it." "David K. is not the answer," I replied. "If he ever tried to confront Blake, I'd stand up for Blake." Brenda looked surprised by my strong words. "I don't understand his problem. He never even spoke to me until recently. After how he treated you, he won't be my friend. He's just not my type." "I heard him complaining to some of the other guys," Brenda said. "They don't seem to see how great you are. You've been with the symphony for 3 years, and it's like they never noticed. They feel cheated." "Bren, you know I love you and you're my best friend, but please don't call me honey," I told her. She looked at me oddly but kept talking. "Anyway, there's something about your hair that has caught the attention of all these guys. You look like a model working with them, and now they can see it." "David K. is just looking for attention," I said. "By the end of summer, he'll have moved on to someone else." She tilted her head and looked at me. "Isn't that the point?" she asked. "Isn't that what Blake might do?" I nodded quickly. "Sort of," I said, stepping into the bathroom. "What do you mean, sort of?" she asked, noticing me getting ready. "I mean, I want to take my time," I replied. "Your energy is so strong, it's captivating," she said. "He must have really made an impression on you." "I wish," I said with a sigh. "He thinks we should take things slow." "Wow," she remarked. "He got you feeling this way just from being near him?" "Yes," I said, recalling our special connection. "See, David K. wouldn't take his time," she noted. "And I'd rather be more than just a fleeting interest," I explained. "I deserve more than that. Not that it's going to happen again," I added, both of us knowing she was still sorting out her feelings about David K. Brenda really wanted to connect with someone. "But really, honey—" "Athena," she corrected herself. "This is just a game, remember? You want someone who, in the end, you'll look back and know it wasn't meant to be. Breaking up won't feel so bad with someone like David K., right?" "I've got it all planned out," I told her. "How?" she asked. "He seems so charming." "I told him we agreed to just have a summer fling," I explained. "We'll bring some joy to each other's lives, and when summer ends, we'll go our separate ways." "That's a smart idea," she replied. I thought it would only last while we were in Paris. But what about his wife? You know he's married, right? She must not be aware, I said. She's missing the signs. Well, when you're done, maybe I'll have a shot, she joked. I'll just wait until you're all settled in a happy relationship. We both laughed, but I felt protective of my friend, too. Clara, I couldn't believe I was about to end things again. I had called Stephen to break up with him, but hearing his sad voice made it hard to say goodbye, so I decided to end it in person and give him a small gift. After a nice lunch, we went back to my room to talk. As soon as I closed the door, he came close to me, and I felt overwhelmed. Even though he was excited, I couldn't relax. Thoughts of what Blake might think filled my mind, and I felt like the moment was slipping away. I realized that Stephen really just wanted one thing. He didn't care for me like I cared for him. As doubts about his intentions grew, I felt more uneasy. Clara, he said softly, if you loved me, you'd at least want to be closer. You're right, Stephen, I started, seeing the hopeful look in his eyes. If I truly felt that way, I would. I turned away, pretending to get ready for bed. Don't forget your gift, I said quietly. I could feel his disappointment, but I needed to take back my space. With my marriage already fragile, I regretted crossing that line again. I promised myself that I would be faithful to Blake and talk openly about any issues. I felt relieved, but little did I know, someone was watching closely, ensuring the truth would come out soon. Blake. The next morning I felt torn when I woke up. On one hand, I felt light and happy, as if I was floating. The day before had been the best time I could remember. Yet on the other hand, I knew that even though there hadn't been any real closeness, I had let Clara down. I couldn't shake the thought that two wrongs don't make a right. It felt like I had two little voices on my shoulders arguing with each other. On my left side, where my heart is, I imagined an angel urging me to remember that just because Clara had made wrong choices, it didn't mean I had to follow her. On my right, I heard a voice calmly explaining my actions, suggesting that what I had done felt good and was therefore okay. He pointed out that if I wanted to save my marriage, seeking revenge would take a long time. Clara hadn't just been having a few innocent moments, she had been pursuing other relationships for years. This situation wasn't about getting even. It was about finding my confidence and self-respect again. We could think about revenge if I stayed with her, but if I decided to leave, then nothing I did would really matter. In that moment, I ignored the angel's advice, and the rational voice started to sound reasonable. All my life, I had followed the rules, and now I found myself at a confusing point. As I got ready for my meeting with Anton, I wore a big smile. I wondered what Athena was doing and sent her positive thoughts in my mind. In simple terms, my only mistake was the timing. Athena called our meeting serendipity, and maybe for her, it was. For it to really be serendipitous for me, it should have happened a few months later after I had started dealing with my marriage issues. Anton was a cheerful, stout man with a personality that seemed even bigger than he was. Women liked him a lot, for some reason. His loud voice and big laugh filled any place he entered. "Blake, my friend," he called from down the hall. "Are you trying to jinx my orchestra?" He laughed even before I figured out what he meant. "It's all over town that you spent the evening with my second-best cellist," he said. He leaned in closer and lowered his voice. "But I have just one question. How did you pull that off?" "How did I do what?" I asked, confused. "Well," he whispered, "no one, not even me, noticed Athena before. She used to look plain. But after just one day with you, she seems different. I've heard so much about her change. What's your secret?" "I have a question for you too, Anton," I replied with a smirk. "I'll keep receipts from now on," he joked. "That wasn't my question," I said. He leaned in to hear me better. "My question is about Athena," I continued. "What's your question?" he asked. "Why is she only your second-best cellist?" I asked. He thought for a moment and then burst out laughing again. He seemed amused, but also serious. "You really like her, don't you?" he said, and I nodded. "All right, I'll be honest with you. But don't tell anyone, especially her." I nodded seriously. "There are two reasons. The first is her personality. She doesn't aim to be the top cellist. She is happy being in the second place. She likes to stay out of the limelight and just enjoy playing without wanting the attention that comes with being first. Being second is even more complicated. Athena can play the cello better than Marco, my first cellist. But Marco adds a lively energy to his performance that the audience loves. Athena's playing is technically good, but it doesn't have that same energy. I understand, I said, appreciating what he said. All right, my friend, you take care of the music, he said. I'll handle the money and payments. Agreed. Agreed, I answered. We spent the rest of the morning looking at the finances, checking where the money went. The main problem was that Anton, being so enthusiastic, sometimes forgot to note down his spending. Though the money was gone, the account showed less than expected. If someone looked without knowing Anton's way, they might think there was a mistake. I suggested the idea of hiring a manager for the orchestra to Anton. But Blake, I'm in charge of the orchestra, he said, surprised. Of course you are, I replied. And you do a great job, but you could use some extra help. Extra help? He repeated, confused. Think about it, Anton. You have a secretary for fan letters and tasks, so you can focus on your work. This new role would be similar, helping you get what you need and keeping track of expenses. Everything would still go through you. Coffee City, she said with a smile. Would you prefer a nice restaurant? I asked. Nope, she said happily. Coffee City is our place. You can treat me this afternoon. But aren't you going to the beach with your friends? I inquired. Not without you, she replied with a playful smile. You're my summer buddy, not them. I have more fun when it's just us. They only show interest now after ignoring me for so long. I chuckled at her honesty. I like spending time with you, I added. What's so funny? She asked, confused. Your friend from yesterday, the one who plays the horn, I mentioned. David K., she said. He's probably not going to like me, I joked. Why would he dislike you? You two barely know each other. Are you going to cut the musician's pay? She asked. Of course not, I assured her. But those two things you just mentioned, I can manage them. No, you can't, she teased, stopping and playfully pulling me into a small space. You could have had them last night, but you said no. I'm not even sure if you really want them, she said playfully. Then I was surprised when she leaned in close, and our lips met quickly in a soft kiss. I was taken aback, and just as I was about to pull away, she held on. What was that? I asked, astonished. I kissed you, she replied, smiling, and it's our little secret. Are you going to feed me or not? David K. is really going to be upset with me now, I said with a small smile. He can rent that green car and stop worrying about me, she replied playfully. Worrying about me is your job. I shook my head slowly, a smile spreading across my face as I enjoyed our back and forth. Isn't it your job to worry about me? She joked. Oh no, that's my job, I said with excitement. I've already rented it, I announced. It's just like the one in Bullet. I'm keeping it while I'm in Paris, and I might buy it. David K. will definitely be unhappy, she said, still smiling. As we left the stairwell, our quick banter caught the attention of a group of women entering. I noticed their different reactions. One looked disapproving, while another smiled and gave us a thumbs up. When we reached Coffee City, Athena spotted a group of her friends at a booth. She led me to a smaller table on the sidewalk. After we ordered, she grabbed my hand and leaned in closer, looking right at me. What are you doing now? A friend of hers approached us, curious. Hi, Brenda, I'm just admiring my favorite face, Athena said with a playful tone, making Brenda roll her eyes. Hi, Brenda, I said, holding out my hand. Hi, Blake, she replied, showing that I was already on their minds. I was wondering how Athena's parents did in school, I joked, which made Athena laugh. Are you making fun of my parents? She asked, pretending to be offended. Nope, but they didn't study Greek mythology, I teased. They named you after the goddess of wisdom when you should have been named after someone else. Ah, she said, leaning in with a smile. Brenda, aren't you going to the beach after rehearsal? Athena asked her friend, her eyes bright. Where are we going? I asked. Wherever you want, she replied. I really want to see the Louvre, Athena said. I know it's a popular spot, but it's my first time in Paris, and I want to see all the famous sights, We're going to the beach because it's close to the hotel, Brenda added. I'd love to see the Louvre, too. Then why not come with us? I suggested. We have a car, Athena teased, and I laughed. You mean the Steve McQueen Bullet Mustang? Brenda asked. Please tell me that's not the car. I nodded, and Brenda began to laugh. I knew it was something like that, said Athena, taking my hand again. I'll see you later, Blake. I'll see you at rehearsal, Thena, Brenda said, trying to stop laughing. I need to go talk to my ex. Now you owe me tonight, too, Athena said with a smile. You already owed me tonight anyway. You owe me all of your nights. But it was really nice of you to invite Brenda. I understand why you did it, though. Is it because I'm a nice guy? I smiled. No, it's because you're feeling guilty about what's going to happen between us, but you are a nice guy. She held my hand. It won't change anything, but you are nice. We had a nice breakfast, and soon many tables were empty. I have to go, she said. I expect you to be in your room by 1:30. Make it 1:45 so I can get ready. I nodded and held her hand. She leaned closer, and I leaned toward her, hoping for a warm moment. She lightly bit my neck and then checked her work. That'll do, she said. That'll do what? I asked. Show everyone you're with me. I spent most of the morning reviewing the books to see how much the orchestra was making from different items. Apart from ticket sales, which were mostly sold before we got to Paris, I needed to check how much we made from programs, shirts, and other things we sold. By comparing their costs to the selling prices, I could see which items were good to keep and which we should probably stop selling. Normally, I could handle bookkeeping for hours without getting tired. But today, I kept looking at the same numbers over and over, not making much progress. I still had more than an hour to wait, and I knew what I wanted to do. I called Selena back home. Hi, Daddy, she answered right away. Are you calling to ask about my sizes? I can text them to you. Ha ha, I replied. I missed you too, Lena. Of course I missed you, Daddy. I haven't been home since you left. I really miss that big TV. Maybe I should just buy you a big TV, I joked. Nah, then I wouldn't have a good reason to visit you, Daddy, she laughed. Oh, are you keeping the house? Huh? I asked. After the divorce, are you going to keep the house or let Mom have it? Selena, I haven't even talked to your mom about what we're going to do yet. We don't know if there will even be a divorce. Well, tell me as soon as you find out, Daddy, she said plainly. I need to know if I should move my clothes from there, and I will text you all my sizes. Bye, Daddy. Selena always cheered me up. She was the one person I felt closest to. No matter what happened or how things turned out, I knew she would always support me. I got up, turned off the computer, and put the records away. Then, I sat back down, went online, and quickly found what I needed. I left the building, went back to the hotel, and got into the Mustang I had rented. I took a moment to download maps into the GPS app on my phone. The GPS app worked well, but since I had never been to Europe with this phone before, I needed to load new maps. Once the app was ready, I entered an address and got directions. The store was different than what I expected. Most jewelry stores in the U.S. are large, like Zales or Jared's. This store, despite its online ad, was small and personal. I asked the owner for something special. I was looking for diamond earrings surrounded by sapphires, which is Selena's birthstone. The owner told me he had something like that in the back. While he went to get them, I looked at the display and noticed something. There was a beautiful brooch shaped like a violin. It was made from polished wood and was small but very detailed, with tiny diamonds that sparkled perfectly. I had never seen anything like it before. Here are the earrings, sir, he said. Then he saw what I was admiring. Isn't this brooch lovely? I noticed he looked a bit sad. I've never seen anything quite like it, I replied. Many say the same, he said. This is a unique piece. It was made for a famous violinist from the Berlin Symphony while she was on tour. Sadly, she never returned for it. I've thought about taking the diamonds off to use in other pieces, but the violin, it means a lot to me. It means a lot to me too, I said. But I wonder why isn't there a cello version? That would be amazing. He looked at me with curiosity. Do you wish to be like a cello, sir? He asked, puzzled. What does that mean? No, I said, smiling. I don't want to be a cello. I see. You would buy it if it was a cello? He asked. This piece costs 2,000 euros. Okay, I said. That's about 2,500 US dollars, right? He nodded. He logged onto a computer and showed me pictures of a violin and a cello. We would need to attach the stand to the original frame and then add diamonds to cover it. Or, to lower the cost, we could just add the stand and polish it. Add the diamonds, I decided. How long will it take? Perhaps 40 minutes, he said. I took out my credit card and handed it to him. I want the earrings too, I said. The earrings are for my daughter. You have made 5 people very happy, he replied. I can only think of 2, I said. Your daughter for the earrings, he pointed out, and the lady who receives the pin. She will surely appreciate it as well. There is also myself and my wife, he laughed. I walked around the streets for a while, looking at several shop windows. I found a few more small gifts for Selena and felt really happy when I walked back into the store. There were a couple of people browsing, and the shopkeeper stopped when he saw me come in. I was just polishing the jewels to make sure they shine and catch the lady's eye, he said. He placed the brooch into a small jewelry box, put it in a bag, and handed it to me. Then he shook my hand and wished me and my family good luck. The same to you, I replied, and he smiled. My good luck started the day you came into my store, he said. I jumped into the car and followed the GPS back to my hotel. I went up to my floor, expecting to find Athena waiting for me, but she wasn't there. I opened the door and saw her leaning back on my bed, with Brenda sitting in a chair. I thought you were supposed to be here waiting for me, she said with a pout. I had to see a doctor, I explained. About that mark on my neck. I've been feeling a bit off since then. You like it, don't you? She asked. I've been feeling a little sick since yesterday, too. What are you two talking about? Brenda asked. And when can we go to the Louvre? Athena jumped off the bed and came over to me. She pointed out the mark on my neck to Brenda. Ooh, someone has a mark, she said. I had to mark him, she started. I see what you mean, Brenda said with a smirk. That's so sweet. Well, I've decided to mark you too, I said. Really? Athena asked, looking excited, which made me laugh. Then she came back to me and smiled. I handed her the box, and as she tried to open it, Brenda came over to look as well. Once she got through all the tissue paper and saw the brooch, her eyes widened. This is for me? She asked. It's beautiful. I'll never take it off. Brenda stared at me in surprise. Blake, it's a lovely piece, she said. Those are real jewels, aren't they? I nodded, and her eyes narrowed. That must have cost a lot. I shrugged, and she shook her head. We spent the entire afternoon at the museum, but I don't think either of us paid much attention to what we saw. Brenda took tons of pictures, from the Mona Lisa to many other famous artworks. Brenda told us she pointed out all sorts of things, but honestly, I couldn't remember any of it. She showed us several pictures of Athena and me next to statues or paintings, and I didn't recall any of those moments either. As the sun started to set and we got back into the car, Brenda suggested we go to a dance club near the hotel. No, said Athena. We just want to relax. But you two have the whole summer to relax, Brenda insisted. So, maybe as Athena had told me, this was her idea for a light-hearted adventure. Athena, you really should spend at least 1 or 2 nights socializing with your friends, she said. But I'm always doing things with them, Athena complained. I often sit in the back feeling unnoticed and a bit bored. But this is a lively new dance club in Paris, Brenda said. How many chances will you have like this? There's something I've only done a few times that I'd rather do than go to a dance club, Athena replied firmly. Blake is coming with us, Athena, Brenda said. Don't you want to annoy David K. a bit more? Athena looked at her, not convinced. I don't care about David K., Brenda. He doesn't matter to me. Maybe you enjoy bothering him, but it doesn't do anything for me. Please, Brenda pleaded. Fine, Athena snapped. We'll stay for an hour, then we're leaving, and you can keep on with David K. When we arrived at the dance club, it was loud, dark, and packed with people. The music could be heard from down the street. We made our way through the crowd. Athena held my hand and clutched her brooch with the other. A waitress helped us through the throng and got us 3 simple folding chairs from nearby tables. She placed them around a large table where Athena's co-workers were gathered. I noticed the musicians were a mix of ages. Some looked very young, perhaps even younger than Athena, while others were older than I am. There were a few women and a lot of men with different shapes and styles. Still, none drew my attention like Athena. Once Athena let go of her brooch, several people came up to her, excitedly asking about it and where she got such a piece. The only one who didn't seem interested was David K., sitting at the end of the table, watching me with a sour look. Athena took my hand and led me onto the dance floor where people were moving to the music. "I don't know how to dance," she admitted. "I just wanted to spend time together." "Just move up and down," I suggested, and we started bouncing along to the beat, laughing together. We didn't look too different from everyone else. As the music changed, I suddenly remembered a silly dance from my teen years and started doing it. People around us began copying my moves, and before long it seemed like I had unintentionally started a dance trend. We went back to our table, laughing and a bit out of breath from the dancing. A young man approached Athena, asking her to dance, but she smiled and politely declined, looking at me instead. "That was a bit rude," Brenda said. "He was just asking to dance." "Athena only wants to dance with one person," she replied. "I can't have anyone getting upset." She squeezed my hand and smiled. "Do you want to dance again?" I was surprised by the nickname she had chosen for me. "I've never had anyone want to dance with me before, let alone two guys." "Believe me, if you could see yourself right now, you'd understand why so many people want to be around you," I said. "Compliments will get you everywhere," she teased back. Another guy came up to Athena, asking her to dance. She looked at me, and I nodded. They went back on the dance floor, enjoying the music. My phone buzzed with 2 messages, so I tapped Brenda on the shoulder and headed to the restroom to check them. As I moved through the crowd, several people jokingly copied my earlier dance. It made me happy to be recognized for something fun. In the restroom, I took out my phone, but before I could look at my messages, the door swung open. "Stay away from Athena," David K. said, clearly upset and maybe a little tipsy. "Don't you think Athena can decide for herself?" I asked. "I don't care if she can," he snapped. "She's mine. If you want someone, why not ask Brenda?" "You're not in a good place right now," I replied. "Let's talk about this later." David K. shouted in frustration and lunged at me. I moved aside and he accidentally hit the wall, making a loud noise. His reaction showed he was hurt, and I found it hard not to chuckle, which only made him angrier. Trying to strike back, he tried to knee me, but I stepped aside again, and he knocked into a nearby object, causing a loud crash and water to spray out. He fell to the floor, clearly in pain. I noticed the security cameras in the corners of the room and figured it was best to keep things calm. "Do you need help?" I asked. "Or should I call for help?" "Just leave me and Athena alone," he said. "Just leave us alone." I left the restroom thinking about leaving the club. However, something urged me to return to our table as quickly as I could navigate through the crowd. Athena. It had been the best day of my life. I thought about everything that had happened, especially Blake's fun dance with the young man who had approached us. Earlier that day, Anton had asked if I wanted to try for first chair in the cello section. He mentioned someone asked why I was only second chair. I guessed it might be because of Blake. It felt strange. Blake had a wife at home, yet I still thought of him as mine. Everything I believed told me that what we were doing was wrong, but I couldn't shake that feeling. Even if he was honest about his marriage, it was tough to ignore what Brenda always said: married men often made excuses to get what they wanted. "I'm getting a divorce," they say, or "my wife doesn't understand me." Brenda truly believed they were just looking for one thing. Blake was different from others. He had turned me down the night before, wanting me to think carefully about everything. This didn't seem like something a guy just looking for a short-term connection would do. He treated me kindly, better than anyone I could remember. What began as a search for a casual friendship had turned into something deeper. I realized I was starting to care for him and felt determined not to let him leave without trying to keep him in my life. As the song finished, another man came up to me. I thought a couple more dances would be okay. This man looked older, maybe around my age, but he pulled me closer in a way I didn't like. His behavior made me uncomfortable, so I stepped back. He tried to talk to me in a language I didn't understand, and though he was speaking differently, I got the sense that his intentions weren't good. I turned and walked away, glad to escape him. My heart dropped as I got back to our table and noticed Blake was gone. Brenda was there, but I couldn't see him anywhere. Trying to stay calm, I approached her. "Where's Blake?" I asked, worried. "I don't know, honey," she answered, looking around and shrugging. "What do you mean you don't know? You were both here. Which way did he go? Why did he leave?" "Relax, Athena," she said. "Just take a deep breath. There are lots of people here who would like to dance with you. You don't have to rely on just one person. Maybe it's better to keep some distance." Her words made my worry grow. Brenda and I had become good friends since we joined the orchestra. We had shared many happy and sad moments. She had gone through her own tough relationships, and I had supported her too. But suddenly her tone felt sharp, and I wondered what had changed. I thought Blake might have seen me with that other man and left because he was jealous. My heart raced as I looked around for him. Then, another man came up, trying to dance with me. I pushed him away, feeling upset. "Please leave me alone," I said, tears beginning to form in my eyes as panic set in. Brenda shook her head, looking worried. "I can't find Blake," I cried, my voice rising with fear. "I'm right here, honey," he said calmly, his voice cutting through the noise. I could hear him over the music like he was speaking just to me. I turned and walked toward him. "I'm so sorry," I said. "I won't do that again. He was tough, and—" "What are you talking about, Athena?" he asked, concern in his voice. I felt sure that Blake cared about me just as I felt about him. That thought filled me with hope, and I reached for his hand, holding it tightly. Everyone at the table was watching us, but I didn't mind. "Honey, we have a problem," he said. "Yes, I know," I replied. "We're too far from the hotel." "No," he said seriously. "Your friend David is in the men's room and needs help." "That's tough," I said, still holding his hand. "We need to get him some help," he said. He called for a waitress, and I held on to his hand. The waitress spoke into a walkie-talkie, and soon several staff members headed for the men's room. A little while later, more help arrived. The waitress who called for help brought over one of the officers. A man asked clearly if we could all go with him. There were too many of us, so he just asked for Blake and a few others to come along. I insisted on going with Blake, and Brenda joined us too. When we got into the officer turned to Blake. "What is your name?" he asked. "Blake Livingston," Blake replied. "Do you know the injured man, David?" the officer asked. "Sort of," Blake said. "He has a different version," the officer continued. "He says you are jealous of his success and tried to make his life difficult. He claims you confronted him in the men's room, and he says you wanted something from him." I started to laugh quietly, and he looked at me. "Young lady, these are serious claims." "The young man is hurt," he said, glancing at me. "You are the young woman they mentioned, right?" "Yes, I am," I said. "And David is not being honest. He and I was interrupted when another officer came in. He had a device that he set on the table and whispered to the officer with us. We all watched as the video played. Blake walked into the restroom, focused on his phone while David entered looking upset. Blake stayed calm, responding to David, who became more agitated. When David swung at Blake, he moved aside, and David ended up hurting himself. "That looks painful," Brenda said. After Blake left the room, David started complaining about his injuries. The officer looked at us and said, "You are free to go." "Don't you owe Blake an apology?" I asked. "I just repeated what the man said," the officer replied. "This is your issue to fix, but someone must cover the damages." "Charge it to the bank," Blake said. "David will have enough problems as it is." "You don't want to press charges?" the officer asked. "No," Blake answered seriously. "I can sort of understand him. In a way, we're similar." "I don't see how," the officer said. "In what way are you alike?" Blake smiled slightly. "I'd do anything for her, too." I took his hand and led him out of the office and into the street. "Athena, are you forgetting the car?" he asked. "We don't have time for that," I replied. He held my hands. "We need to talk about this," he said. "Nope," I said. "We've talked enough. Are we going back to your room? Once we entered Blake's suite, I was amazed at how big it was. I thought the living room was all there was, but now that the doors to the other rooms were open, I could see how large it really was. I should be doing something else, I said, feeling excited. I couldn't figure out why he seemed unsure. Wait, I need to grab a few things. I'll be right back. Athena, with everything that happened tonight. He began. I gently placed a finger over his lips and ran to my room. I grabbed some clothes and makeup, not intending to return to my room that night, maybe not ever. I knocked on Blake's door, which was still open. He was sitting on the edge of his bed, looking troubled. He held his phone and seemed lost in thought. When he looked up, the sadness on his face almost broke my heart. "She isn't going to stop," he said. I didn't really understand, but I could see that he needed me. I jumped onto him and took away the phone, wrapping my arms around him tightly. After a moment, he started to respond and returned my embrace. I felt a warm connection between us. "Oh," he sighed softly. "Do you like this?" I asked. Instead of answering, he turned to rest against my neck. "Oh, yes," I said. The atmosphere was filled with a kind of energy I had never felt before. "Blake, we have too many clothes on," I said, wanting to be closer to him. I quickly removed what was in the way. As I did, I felt both nervous and brave. He looked surprised, and I wanted him to see me for who I really was. His touch made me tingle and awakened something inside me. I felt bold and leaned closer to him. The moment was charged as he held me, and we were pulled together. Everything around us faded away. We lay there, feeling connected in a comforting way. Our movements became gentle explorations, bringing us closer together. Every touch deepened our bond, and as time went on, it felt natural, like we were meant to fit together. I felt a strong urge, but he held back, making me long for something more. "Blake, I whispered, feeling the tension build within me. He smiled warmly, and I saw happiness in his eyes. Our connection was clear, linking us in a way that went beyond words. We shared soft laughter and gentle moments that left us both breathless. Blake's kind actions made me feel valued and at ease. Together, we went through the journey of our growing feelings. I was in a moment that meant more than just being close. It was about trust, love, and a bond I hoped would last forever. As we held each other tightly, warmth and care flowed between us. "I'm so sorry, honey," he said. "I should have asked you this earlier. Are you taking anything?" "Yes," I replied. "I'm just here with you, and I know that." "Athena," he said softly. "No, Blake, I'm not taking anything. And yes, you just made a meaningful connection with me. Now let me lie here and look at the stars. Maybe we made a mistake, but that was the best moment of my life, and I don't regret it. Now please be quiet and hold me." He did just that. He turned over and wrapped his arms around me. It felt warm and comforting, like being surrounded by love. I wished we could stay like this forever. After a bit, he started to snore lightly, and I loved that sound. I felt so safe with him. Tears started to fall. I know that men don't always understand women. I am a woman, and I often don't understand us either. In that moment, I felt mixed up inside. I was filled with emotion. It was the happiest moment of my life, but also the saddest because I knew it might not last. I saw heartbreak waiting for me, and I knew it was my own choice that led me here. I had jumped into a situation just for fun, not thinking it through. Some might say my feelings were just a typical first love, but I knew better. I heard a sound from under the bed, so I carefully moved away from my sleeping partner. It was a warning tone from his phone saying the battery was low. I pressed the button to check how much power it had left. I hoped it would last until morning when he could charge it. I didn't know how to charge his phone or where his charger was. When I turned the phone on, it went straight to the last message he received. "Repeat message," it said, and then a man's voice played. "Mr. Livingston, she did it again. She was with the same guy in the same hotel. I think I got video. I'll send it if it shows anything. The more proof you have for court, the better. Plus, there will be a date on the video, even if it's blank, to show that even after you asked her to stop, she kept on." That was upsetting. How could she hurt him like that? But deep down, I realized that this message was what had brought Blake into my life. I made a promise to myself that he would never regret this moment. I knew I wouldn't. Clara, I woke up to my phone ringing. I rushed out of bed to see if it was Blake. He hadn't called me in over a week. He had also ignored my calls, and his staff wouldn't tell me where he was. Since the incident with Stephen a few days ago, I hadn't reached out to him, nor had I answered his calls. It was now very important for me to focus on saving and fixing my marriage. A phone number I didn't know showed up on my caller ID. I answered it anyway. "Hello?" I said cautiously. "Dr. Livingston, I presume," said a man with a strange voice. "Excuse me?" I replied. "Did you just ask if I'm joking?" he said. "Look, I was teasing. You're not a doctor of anything unless it's breaking hearts. I have an offer for you." "I am going to hang up," I said firmly. "That's not a good idea," he replied sharply. "In less than a month, you might find yourself in divorce court, wondering if I could have helped you." "I will give you 3 minutes," I said, feeling uneasy. "My name is Carl Bias," he said. "I work for the Acme Detective Agency. Your husband hired me to follow you and get information about you." I took a deep breath. "I did something for him recently, but I haven't finished my report yet," he continued. "I told him you were still seeing someone, but I haven't sent him the video, and he hasn't asked for it. He might be busy or just hurt. He cares for you a lot. I kept giving him updates, hoping you would change. It's really sad. If you were my wife, I would have a serious talk with you." "The time is running out," I said. "Look, I've handled a lot of situations like this, and it's not hopeless. Like I said, he knows you were with someone else, but I can make him believe it wasn't your choice. Since he hasn't seen the video, maybe you can fix this. In most cases, if a man loves his wife and finds out she has been with someone else, that's one thing. But seeing it can be very upsetting. So, should I send him the video or not?" he asked. While he talked, I reached for my phone on the desk. I quickly dialed my home number. He could hear a clicking sound on the line. "Mr. Bias, I have another call. Please hold on. It's Blake. I'll deal with him and get back to you." I muted the call and noticed the answering machine next to the phone. Blake had set it up to record his calls. I turned the recorder on and went back to Bias. "Okay, Mr. Bias, speak quickly. My husband will call me back in 5 minutes. If I have any chance of saving my marriage, I need to work with you. What do you want?" "That's easy," he said with a sneer. "I've seen you with several men besides your husband for a while now. I just want a share of what they had. You might enjoy it, and it's not like you haven't already been involved. But with me, you'd get something in return." "What do you mean?" I asked. "The first time we meet, I'll give you the only copy of the recording from your last meeting with Stephen. After that, you can see Stephen as much as you want. Each time you spend time with him, just give me a little something and I'll give your husband a good report. He trusts me now. You could probably spend time with anyone, and he'd never know. But if we don't meet soon, I'll send your husband the video, and you might see me in court as a witness. I'll call you back in 24 hours. You either set up a meeting then, or I send the video." He hung up before I could respond. I realized I was in a tough spot, and I could only blame myself. I had no idea what time it was in Paris. I called Blake over and over, but he didn't answer. Just when I was about to give up, I knew what I had to do. My husband was still upset with me, but I knew someone he would talk to. I called Selena and explained that I really needed to speak to her father. I asked her if she could call him for me, and I would really appreciate it. Maybe it was how I sounded or that I told her talking to me might help her father. She agreed. She suggested I come over to her apartment so we could call from there. She thought that would work better because even if she called him, Blake might take his time getting back to me. I got to her place quickly and watched as she made the call. She waited less than half a minute before a surprised look came over her face and she started talking excitedly. I asked if I could speak to him, but she signaled for me to be quiet and spoke softly. I wondered what she was saying. After a few minutes, she handed me the phone, saying, "Daddy will be on the line soon." I waited nervously, and as soon as he said, "What do you want, Clara?" I started speaking quickly. I felt like everything depended on this conversation. "Hello, Blake, I need to talk to you. It's really important. I've made a mistake, and you're not going to like it, but if I don't talk to you, things might get worse. Please let me explain," I said. The words poured out until he interrupted. What makes you think I don't know already? He asked. I was taken aback, not ready for his response. I took a breath to gather my thoughts. Blake, our marriage is struggling, I said calmly. I know I'm to blame for a lot of it, but you also have a part in this. You've been focused on work for the past 5 years, just as much as you've been focused on us. Maybe you didn't break your vows like I did, but you didn't prioritize our relationship either. The problem is that the investigator you hired to follow me is trying to blackmail me. I heard him take a sharp breath. Is this some kind of trick? He asked. Blake, I understand why you might doubt me, I said. Things between us are not good right now, and I accept my part in that. So listen closely. Give me a minute. I set the phone down and turned to my daughter. Selena, can you please leave the room for a moment? I asked, wanting to protect her from our conversation, even though she knew about the troubles in my marriage. She went out as I downloaded the voicemail from the investigator onto my phone. I held my cell up to the phone and pressed play. Blake stayed quiet while he listened to the recording. Okay, I guess I have to trust you, he said. I could hear the tension in his voice, mixed with the anger he felt towards me and the investigator. So what do we do now? He asked. I wished I could see his face. I sensed he was struggling to believe me, even after everything we discussed. Blake, I really don't know what to do, I admitted. I just wanted you to know what's going on so I wouldn't have to give in to this man's threats and hurt our marriage even more. I'm trying my best to make things right. This doesn't help us at all, he replied sharply. Clara, don't you see that this just drives us apart even more? This all happened because you went back to someone from your past after saying it was over. He paused, letting that sink in. Maybe you and this man set this up to get my sympathy. Think about it. I've always been easy to persuade when you needed something. It just feels too convenient for him to be blackmailing you. Why should he be any different? How do I know you haven't already been close to him? His questions were tough, showing how much trust had faded between us. Blake, I promise you, I said firmly. I'm done with that part of my life. If I hadn't made that choice, it would have been easier to just go along with him. I want to save our marriage. He was quiet for a few moments. Do you really think there's anything left to save? He asked. Are you kidding me? I replied. Look, I made mistakes. I did things I shouldn't have done and missed chances to do the right thing. I put myself in tough situations, but through it all, I've never stopped loving you or wanting us to stay married. If you think otherwise, you need to change those thoughts. I want to spend my life with you, Blake. I just want us to be together more so I don't feel so lonely at home. The only mistake you made was not putting us first. Clara, that's not fair, he said sharply. Every woman and many of the men I know who have gone through divorce often use a similar excuse. It's a common reasoning that people use to avoid taking responsibility. I worked hard every day. Sometimes I even took work home. But Blake, I did it for us. I wanted to make sure you had everything you take for granted. You want a new car every few years and trips to places that most of your friends can't go to, right? How many times have you changed things in the house or made donations to charities over the last 10 years? Clara, you spend a lot of time with all your clubs. Do you get paid for that? What about the gas for driving to your meetings? And what about the clothes you buy to fit in with everyone else? My dear, all of that costs money, and only one of us is working. How many hobbies do I have? He asked. What do I do with my free time? I was unsure how to respond. You go for a run every day, I said. You run for about half an hour each evening and... Then it hit me. Exactly, Clara. I've spent my life working hard to support you and Selena. Right now, the only thing I really have from the last 20 years is my daughter. What you're doing makes it seem like I wasted my life. So don't come here with excuses about feeling lonely. If that's all you have, I could file for divorce today. Blake, no! I said in shock. Clara, look at us. I'm 45 and you're 48. We had a good life and now we're nearing the end of it. My boss is retiring soon and I'm set to take his job. I'm almost doing it now. In a year, I could cut back on work and spend more time enjoying life with you. But now I have to think differently. No, Blake, I want that too, I cried. I just never realized how hard you worked. I thought your life was as free as mine since I don't have a job. I never thought about hobbies until you mentioned it, I added. It's more than that, he said. Something must have changed in your mind to make you think it was okay to break my trust. That hurt a lot. and it made me feel embarrassed. I didn't want to face it at first because I thought we had a good life. My expression changed at his words. I carried that pain with me, he continued. I felt guilty, thinking maybe I pushed you away because I worked so much. But I was doing it for all of us, and someone had to. I even took steps to find out more about what happened. It's part of my job to have access to certain resources. I hired someone to watch things quietly, and it was at that moment that I took a step back. It has been tough without closeness, he said. We used to be very close, so a year without that has been hard. I'm not sure I will ever feel the same. It's not just about physical connection. I need to feel real closeness with the person I'm with. To me, as our vows suggested, it should be something special shared with someone you love. It's not meant to be something casual that you do with anyone just because you're bored. But Blake, it's not like that for us, I argued. You are the one I love. When we spend time together, it means so much more. I can't talk to Clara about this. Your actions make your words feel empty. And I'm wondering, Clara, our daughter is only 22 years old. She just graduated from college and is starting her first job while deciding if she wants to continue her education. For the last 6 years, since she got her first car at 16, she drives to see me whenever she wants, whether I am busy or not. If I'm working and she wants to chat, she comes to my workplace. We have lunch together, and sometimes she just sits with me while I work. A few times, she even came along when I went for a run. She can't run, so she rode her bike with me, he shared. You and Selena have always been close, I said. You two are inseparable. Yes, but why couldn't you have done that too? He asked. If you were missing me so much, if you felt lonely, why couldn't you come to see me? Was it really so much easier to find comfort somewhere else? His words shocked me, and he kept pressing on. It feels like you needed an excuse to start seeing others behind my back. Did you think about it, Clara? Did you have a list? Well, he's okay, but that's not a reason to stray. He provides well, so I can't complain. He's calm, so that's not a reason. Ah, here it is. He works long hours and leaves me to myself sometimes. I read somewhere that means I can look for someone else. Was it something like that? He asked. No, dear. I don't think it was a deliberate choice. It was more like something that just happened. Blake, you make it sound like I'm doing something awful, I said. No, Clara, he replied. I respect those who seek comfort elsewhere. You used our money to spend on those people. In a way, you gave away our marriage for nothing. How sad is that? But let's get back to the point. Hold on while I make a call. Blake pressed a button to include another call in our conversation. He called the agency where the private investigators worked and talked to a man there about the situation. The man was surprised when Blake explained what had happened. He asked Blake if he believed me, and Blake replied that he did. They quickly came up with a plan over the phone. While we were all on the line, I called the private investigator again. Hey, he said when he answered. That was fast. You seem eager, huh? I can tell you that I might not last as long as the younger guys you've been with, but when we're done, you'll know something has happened. The good news is, as long as you meet with me, your husband will never find out about anything. You mean I'm going to not like this as much as having to go along with your ideas to keep my husband off my back? I asked. Probably more, he replied. That little rule you have about not doing certain things will need to go. You and I will have to change that. Is that clear? Crystal, I said. It sounds like you're almost happy about this, he said. That gets me excited. Maybe we should meet today. I don't see that happening. You're going to be busy, said his boss, cutting in. You need to clean out your desk and deal with the professional issues you're facing. They might take your license for this, and it's clear that you're done here. You set me up, he shouted. I'll get back at you for this. Then he hung up the phone. Mr. Livingston, don't take his words seriously, said his boss. I have a contact who can take care of things like this. He won't cause you any trouble, and you probably won't hear from him again. I'd really appreciate that, said Blake. After the man hung up, I felt relieved and let out a sigh. So what do we do next? I asked Blake. Maybe we should go to counseling to try to work through this. Clara, don't call me anything nice, he snapped. And I'm not sure we'll ever get to counseling. I just need some time to think. For the past 3 years, you've been seeing others, haven't you? Yes, Blake, but they weren't meant to hurt you, I said. They don't change how I feel about our marriage. I love you. Those men didn't mean anything to me. I didn't really think about how much this would hurt you. Well, Clara, you can wait a bit longer, he said coldly. I want to see if you're being honest with me. What do you mean? I'm going to see if I can have my own fling and see if it hurts you. I want to see if it damages our marriage. But at least I'm being upfront with you about it instead of hiding. Blake, no! I pleaded into the phone. Don't even think about it. I don't agree with this. Did anyone say you had a choice? He replied before ending the call. Blake hung up and looked at me. We were still sitting on his bed. Well, the secret is out, he said. At least now you don't have to feel bad about us hiding. Do you still want to keep things going? More than ever, I said, reaching for him. He looked like he might cry, even though he seemed strong. I decided not to add any more pressure on him, so I held back my true feelings. He had made it clear that he wanted a fun, easy summer. After all, it was my idea. He was trying to enjoy himself while dealing with problems in his marriage. I knew that even if he left his wife, we might not end up together. I had heard that only about 10% of women who have affairs stay with those men after a divorce. Still, I knew I wouldn't give up on him. I wanted him in my life and needed to find a way to tell him that. As I pulled Blake closer, I thought about how to start the important conversation. He held me tightly, and I wanted to say more. I leaned in, hoping to share something special. Blake had once said that closeness was more meaningful to him than just casual things. Did that mean he felt something deeper for me? That thought gave me hope. He moved back a little. We still haven't really talked about what happened, he said. Maybe. What is there to discuss? I asked. Last night was great, but let's keep it simple. We should enjoy what we have without letting past issues and others affect us. He looked at me and smiled. You mean we should forget about your friend who made a scene? That was just a misunderstanding, I said, noticing him trying to hold back a smile. But there is more going on. Well, one of us needs to be at the concert hall to meet Anton soon, he said. The other can rest before she. I just need a little sleep, I said. Then I'll practice and get ready before we have breakfast. He smiled. What do you want to do after that? It doesn't matter, as long as I'm with you, I replied. He went to the bathroom to get ready, and I picked up his phone, dialing the last number. The call connected right away. I didn't think you would call me back, she said. Why did you? Because I want us to understand each other better, I said. I think we have a lot in common. Like what? She asked. What do we share? Selena, we have everything in common, I started. Wait, you know my name? She asked. Of course, I said. Your dad talks about you a lot. You mean a lot to him. Okay, stop, she said. This isn't how I thought this would go. I thought you'd be more like the people my mom sees, just one-time things. Why are you asking about me? I wondered. Because we have a special connection, I replied. We've spent time together, and I really appreciate it. What do you do together? She asked. We enjoy each other's company and have good talks, I answered. What's your job? She wanted to know. I'm a cellist with the orchestra, I said. I've been performing for 3 years. This is my first visit to Paris, but I've traveled a lot. Are you from here? She asked. Yes, I am, I replied. Are you a big deal here? She inquired. I'm recognized in my field, but classical music doesn't get as much attention as other styles, I explained. It doesn't have the same excitement as pop music. So you're okay with a short connection with my dad and then leaving? Another guy? She asked. How many guys have you been with? She pressed. Selena, that's a very personal question, I replied. Can you just answer them? She said sharply. When it relates to someone affecting your father's relationship, you can set the rules. Until then, please be honest. Are you asking about every guy I've dated or just the serious ones? I clarified. Both, she insisted. Well, I had a couple of relationships in college. The first was my first serious boyfriend, and the second was a year later, just to see if the first one was really what I thought it was. I explained. So how many times were you together with each guy? She dug deeper. Once, I said. I think I heard her laugh. And as for relationships, this is my first one, I added. And Selena, I'm not the reason your parents are having issues. That was happening long before I came along. You heard their conversation just like I did. I would never want to hurt Blake. If anything, I would— Okay, just relax, she interrupted. Please don't start getting upset. This is tough for me too. What are you sure about? I asked. When will you tell him? She asked, ignoring my question. Tell him what? I replied. What's your name? She prompted. Athena, I told her. What do you want me to say to Blake? I won't get involved if you'd rather not, she said. This is your situation. I think you should probably let my dad know that you care about him and want something more than just a casual connection. Who said that? I responded. I never mentioned that. You didn't need to, Athena, she replied. You're in my dad's space, which means that what you're doing matters to him. Unlike my mom, my dad wouldn't get involved with someone unless he really meant it. That's just who he is. You also talked about the men you've been with. Honestly, I dated more guys my first semester of college. You're not someone who would cling to my dad for shallow reasons. The way you talk about him shows that you care. That means a lot to me because I love him too. You hesitated when I asked what you would do when this was over. That shows you don't want things to end, and it's probably bothering you. Please don't tell him, I begged. Why not? She asked. I only care about my dad's happiness. I love my mom too, but she can be pretty focused on herself. She just wants a good deal. My dad needs someone who genuinely cares for him. I really hope you're that person. I need to know he'll be okay when I go to Europe in a couple of years to study. Because if you tell him, he might choose to stay with me, I explained. But it wouldn't be for the right reasons. I want to be with Blake, but I want it to be because he truly cares for me, not just to fill an empty space. Athena, my dad is confused and upset right now, she said. I hope this works out for you. Maybe we can meet next week when you guys get back. I would like that, I replied. Who are you talking to, honey? Blake asked from behind me. It was just a casual question. I put the phone on speaker. I was hoping it was Anton, he said, so you could tell him I'm running late because you took all my energy. Thanks, Dad. I really needed to hear that, Selena said. Blake's eyes widened. Hi, kitten, he said, looking at me. What did you bring me, Dad? Selena asked. You'll have to wait until I get back to find out, he said. Well, Dad, I need to get ready. I'm going out with the girls. I'll talk to you later. Bye, Athena. Take care of him for me, she said before hanging up. As Blake looked at me, I felt a rush of warmth. I reached for him, but he kindly stepped back with a smile, letting me know everything was okay. We'll have to save that for later, he said. You heard your daughter, Blake, I teased. She asked me to look after you. He laughed and gave me a soft kiss before heading for the door. I'll see you at breakfast, he said. I'll see you at breakfast, I replied. He shook his head, amused. As I lay there in the early morning light, I felt a bit empty after he left, even if it was just for a moment. The summer was meant for enjoying a relationship, but I felt like I was really discovering what love meant. I tried to close my eyes and picture Blake and me together. Just thinking about it filled me with warmth. The time we shared had been so special. Being close to him was unforgettable. I recalled the warmth from our moments together and was still smiling when I heard a ringing sound. Blake must have taken his phone with him. It couldn't be from there. I rolled out of bed, glancing around the large suite until I found it. It was the room's phone. I picked it up. I should have guessed, said Brenda sarcastically. Good morning, my friend, I said cheerfully into the phone. How can you be so happy after your boyfriend's fight with David K? She asked. Blake didn't lay a finger on him, I replied firmly. I always knew David K was unique, but last night was the first time I witnessed him take a big fall like that. He kind of deserved it after how he treated you. You don't know the whole story, she replied. Sweetheart, we're in a tough spot, and there's an issue. What do you mean? I asked. Where do I begin? She said. David K hurt his hand badly. He broke 3 fingers and might need surgery. He also hurt his knee and won't be walking for a while. The doctors say the damage is pretty bad. He must have been really angry when he hit that wall. They say he can have surgery today or tomorrow, and his hand will be in a cast for at least 6 weeks. After that, he might start some therapy, but they can't promise he'll be able to play again. He might also walk with a bit of a limp. Your boyfriend arranged for the orchestra to pay for the surgery costs that David K's insurance won't cover. The insurance company might argue over how the injury happened. Anton is really upset. He's been arguing with the musicians' union most of the night. He wants to let David K go before he even has a chance to see if he can play again. Anton claims David K's actions break our contract. The union argues it happened off-site and on a night when there wasn't a performance. Anton insists that any behavior reflects on the orchestra while we're touring. This is a mess, I said. Oh, you still don't see the full picture, she replied. We fly home in 3 days, and there's going to be a meeting to talk about this. If Anton gets his way, David K will be out of the orchestra. He'll lose everything without a severance package. He never thought he'd need insurance like that. I wanted to laugh, but she stopped me. Athena, he'd have nothing and no way to take care of himself. His career could be over. Can you imagine how you'd feel if you couldn't play the cello anymore? She asked. Brenda, I answered. My life would change, but it wouldn't be the end of everything. What do you mean? She asked softly. Until a week ago, you were all about that big violin. Now you're saying it isn't the most important thing? You're right, I said with a smile, glad she couldn't see my face. My cello is very important to me. What's happening to David K is awful, but honestly, I think he brought it on himself. Does that mean you won't help? She asked. Help with what? I replied. David K has a plan to maybe keep his spot with the symphony, she said. A friend of his who is a lawyer came up with it. Good for David K, I said. At least he has someone looking out for him. Seriously, Athena, she pressed. We think if you act like you were a little flirty with David K, it might help him say that seeing you with Blake made him lose control. He could say he was temporarily confused? I replied. Are you suggesting I misled him to help him? Athena, we are his friends, and we've known him for years. We need to support him, she said. You aren't in trouble, and no one will focus on you after this. Except they'll see me as someone who leads guys on, I argued. That could go in my file and make it hard for me to travel with the orchestra. You could have Blake help with that, she suggested. Why would I ask Blake to do that? I answered. Wait, do you want me to ask Blake to say he made David K react? That would be perfect, she said excitedly. Do you think he'd? Oh, of course he would. You two have grown close, right? No, I said firmly. Well, maybe I should give you some advice, she continued. You need practice. I'll show you what works. You'll have him wanting to do anything for you. Brenda, when I said no, I meant it. I won't do this. I won't betray Blake to help David K. But you must, she insisted. No, I don't, I replied firmly. You need to tell him that. If he thinks I'll help, he will be in trouble before he even tries. You're just being selfish, she snapped. Well, there is one thing I need from you, she went on. David K is sharing a room with another guy from the brass section. Can you switch with him so I can stay with David K? He'll need someone to help him for a couple of days after the surgery before we go home. I didn't answer right away. She took my silence as agreement. Come on, Athena, the guy you'd room with is in his upper 50s. He'll be a perfect gentleman. Besides, I'm not sure you and I should share a room anymore. Why not, Brenda? I asked. Because you're not being a good friend, she said. I can't believe you're not willing to help David K. It really hurts me. You're being selfish. If you can't do it for him, can you do it for me? No, Brenda, I can't, I said sadly. What a disappointment, she snapped. I guess you're perfect. You've never reacted badly or done something wrong because your emotions took over. That's probably why you've been single for so long. You seem to lack feelings. I see this is your usual routine, I said. Just yesterday, you were still upset about that guy who didn't care about your feelings. You hated him for using you and then just walking away. Last night, his actions were embarrassing. If he is struggling, it's because of his own choices. I don't want to go to any meeting about David K's actions. If I go, I'll bring the tape with me. First, there is no relationship between David K and me. You know that. Until I changed my style and took your advice about my hair, he didn't even notice me. I changed not just because of you, but because I thought your summer idea was silly. Even then, I wanted to catch Blake's eye, not David K's. David K isn't interested in me, Brenda. He just uses people. Remember everything you did for him? Towards the end, he made you feel bad. Do you remember when he invited you over and told you to wear a certain outfit? And then he had some friends there when you arrived? Stop it, she interrupted loudly. That won't happen again. He has changed, Athena. He's still not a good person, Brenda, I answered. You saw what happened on the tape. Blake is much older than David K, but David K still tried to take advantage of him when he wasn't paying attention. We both know that was low. He planned it out, not out of anger, but out of weakness. If you were really my friend, you wouldn't ask me to do this. If you weren't so eager to be with him again, you wouldn't even think about it. Athena, I'm tired of being alone, she confessed. It's easy for you. You went years without anyone. It seems like everything I want, you just get. You let me persuade you to date someone for the summer. You just relaxed and got attention. I'm just as good-looking as you, but no one sees me. I need this, Athena. Brenda, I need Blake more, I replied firmly. Why? She snapped. He's older, married, and will leave at the end of summer. He'll go back to his life, and you'll be left to handle the fallout. David K will blame you for his problems. How did I cause his problems? I asked, confused. Because you know how he is, she answered. Just being yourself around David K was like provoking him. Suddenly, it clicked. That was your plan all along, wasn't it, Brenda? I said. You wanted me to change for Blake, but really, it was to get David K's attention. You made me dislike him so that if he showed any interest, I'd want nothing to do with him after how he treated you. But while he focused on me, you would get a chance to reach out to him again. If you care about him so much, wasn't it a big risk? Not really. I knew you didn't like him, she insisted. I made sure of that by putting him down since he ended things with me. I thought the plan would work. That's the problem, I said. When you think something is foolproof, someone always finds a way to break it. 2 words, Athena, she said. Is it yes or no for our friendship? Just 2 words, Brenda, I replied. With our friendship on the line, it's a clear no. Blake. Anton, you seem distracted from work, I said. Blake, all this trouble with David K is causing me many issues, he replied. I have to move one of my trumpeters up to his spot, and I still need a soloist. I shook my head. Did you know he's trying to sue me? He asked. I let him go, and now he wants to argue about it. The guy is really frustrating. He went into the restroom and started yelling. The doctors say he may never perform again. He might be able to teach music at a school, but professionally, those days might be over. I hadn't heard that, I said. The doctors haven't told him yet, he said. They won't. If he knew, it could hurt his recovery. Think about it. Why would he work hard in therapy if he thought there was no hope? They give him false hope, but that's all it is. I stayed silent and just listened. It's a real shame, he continued. David K was difficult, but he was the best trumpeter I've ever heard. He had a special presence. There are many musicians out there. You could find several people who can play at the level of my orchestra. The problem is, many of them only play the notes. They can't express the music or bring it to life. Most can't handle the pressure. David K will be tough to replace as a soloist. Maybe not, I said. Why does it have to be a trumpeter for the solo? Blake, I know what you're thinking, and it just wouldn't work. I've known her for 3 years and seen her grow, but this isn't something she'd feel comfortable doing, he said. What do you have to lose? You don't have a soloist now. Would it be better to spend more money on someone new or to give someone in your orchestra a chance? You're supposed to be giving her a shot for the top seat anyway, right? Why not let her play for you right now with no preparation? To be quick, you could have the other guy come in and play too. That way, it just looks like you wanted to see who should be first chair. All right, I'll do this, he said. I'll call Marco and ask him to come over now. If we do this quickly, they'll have time to eat and get ready before we practice. Today's practice is important. We have shows tonight and tomorrow. The next day, we would fly home, and I would have time to work on any issues with the performance. I'll call Athena, I said with a smile. I moved to a corner of the room and took out my phone to call her. When she answered, I began, Athena, I need you to do something. Sure, what is it? She replied. Please take your cello and come to the rehearsal room at the concert hall, I said. All right, she said. I'll be there in about an hour. Athena, I need you to come right now. It's really important. Okay, I'm on my way, she said. I hung up and told Anton that she was coming. Marco is having breakfast and is on his way too, Anton added. 10 minutes later, Anton and I had reached the practice room when a tall man entered carrying a cello. "Hello, maestro," he said in a loud voice. "Marco, I need you to play for us," said Anton. "Please play the new Mozart arrangement for our first concert at home." Marco stepped outside and returned with some music sheets. He put them on a stand and began tuning his cello. Just then, Athena entered. Marco turned to see her, and she nodded at him. Everyone in the room seemed to be captivated by Athena as she walked directly to me, her hair framing her face in a lovely way. "What am I playing?" she asked Anton. He reminded her of the piece, and she got her music ready. She sat beside Marco as he counted the time. Then they began to play. The music was a Mozart piece I had never heard before, but some parts sounded familiar because I had heard Athena practice it. Listening to them together was amazing, especially in such a small room. The sound from their instruments was much fuller compared to when the cello played with an orchestra. The deep notes blended beautifully with the higher notes of the violins. Some parts of the music were more complex, and I was impressed that neither of them made any mistakes. Anton, however, seemed to notice something. "Athena," he said sharply, "play the second section from the fourth measure to the 12th. She looked unhappy, but picked up her bow. When she saw me smile, she played. It was a tricky part, but she handled it with ease, her eyes on me. "Again," Anton said, and she played it once more. "Try it again," he instructed. She played without hesitation. "Marco, can you play that section?" he asked. Marco played the same part Athena had just done. Anton nodded and said, "Once more." Marco didn't seem pleased, which made me think something was off. Anton shook his head. "That was not good. You fell behind the rhythm and rushed through the pauses. It makes the melody feel cramped." "I expected more from my top player," he said, shaking his head. "I will practice more, maestro," Marco replied. "No," Anton said. "Play a solo for me." "What?" Marco asked, surprised. "Just play," Anton insisted. "Athena, leave the room. Come back in 10 minutes. Athena took her cello and walked toward the door. I followed her outside, where I saw some other musicians chatting as we left. They waved or spoke to Athena, but only gave me polite nods. "What did you talk about?" she asked playfully. Her expression was cheerful, but I could tell something was on her mind. "I talked to Anton about you a few days ago," I explained. "I asked why you were his second cellist. He mentioned he would have you play against Marco. I thought that would happen after we got home, but today we talked about your friend's accident and how Anton needs a new soloist. I suggested you again." "A cello soloist?" "That's not me," she replied. "Yes, it is," I insisted. "Athena, every kid who picks up an instrument dreams of performing in front of an audience. I want you to have that chance." "I've heard you play," I said. "You're amazing. Don't tell him I said this. But Anton thinks you're even better than Marco. You just need to express yourself. Feel the music and share it with the audience. If you do that, you'll win them over." Just then, her cello slipped from her grasp and fell to the floor. She moved closer to me, filled with excitement as laughter and friendly chatter echoed around us. Suddenly, we heard someone clear their throat. Brenda stood behind us, looking at Athena. "Anton is ready for you," she said, her tone a bit colder than usual. "Did you think about what we discussed?" Brenda asked. "I had time to think," Athena responded. "But you already know my choice." "What are you doing here this morning?" Brenda pressed. "I'm here to play music," Athena said with a smile. "We can discuss this later." I picked up her cello and followed her back inside, curious about what was happening between them. Marco played bits of several Beethoven pieces, all in the same key, Anton remarked. It sounded lovely. Athena nodded and smiled. "I know. We've heard him play those many times." "What about you? What will you play?" Anton asked. "This," Athena replied as she gently stroked the bow against the strings, producing a beautiful, sorrowful sound that built in intensity. She played a quick series of notes and tapped softly on the back of her cello. It sounded like a train coming closer. Then she smoothly started to play Led Zeppelin's The Immigrant Song on her cello. The music was amazing, and watching her was just as impressive. I managed to take a picture of her while she played. My lovely Athena sat on a stool with the cello in front of her, her long, wild hair cascading over her shoulders and partly hiding her face. As she moved her head with the rhythm, her hair formed a beautiful frame around her. For less than 5 minutes, she held everyone's attention with her performance. The music flowed easily through different styles and tempos. When she finished, Anton and the others stood still, speechless for almost a full minute. She looked at me and smiled. "Come on, cello. I'm hungry, and you owe me breakfast." We were almost out the door when Anton finally spoke up. "Yes, go get breakfast. But come back right away. You will perform tonight." He looked at me and added, "And you, my friend, whatever you are doing to inspire her, keep doing it." Marco came over to congratulate her. All the musicians we passed smiled and patted her on the back. Brenda joined us as we walked to Coffee City for breakfast. We took our usual table by the sidewalk, and the two of them stayed quiet until we placed our orders. Then Brenda finally spoke. "So it's bad enough that you won't help him. And now you want his solo spot too," she said, frustration clear in her voice. Athena shot back. "I never tried to take his solo spot. Cello called me early this morning and asked me to come over. He only told me to bring my cello." "How did your cello call you?" Brenda asked. "Not the instrument, him," Athena said, pointing at me. "Why do you call him cello?" Brenda wanted to know. "Because I love him like my cello. He makes me happier than anyone else," she replied. "And he belongs by my side, just like my cello." Brenda looked surprised. "Don't you have somewhere to be?" Athena interrupted. "Doesn't David K. need someone to give orders to? You should go tell him he's already been replaced." Anton moved Kurt to first trumpet. "But Athena," Brenda stammered, "we need to talk." "We'll talk," Athena said. "After David K. sees what's real. When you need a friend again and are ready to face the truth, call me." Brenda stood up and walked away. As soon as she left, Athena took my hand, and I moved my chair closer to her. "What's wrong?" I asked. She started to sniffle and rested her head against my chest. She shared the entire conversation she had with Brenda earlier. She talked about David K.'s plans and how he wanted both of us to fit into it. She finished by agreeing to Brenda's request to switch rooms with David K. so that they could stay together. "Well, there is another option," I said. "I'm listening," she replied. "My suite is quite big for just one person," I explained. "Maybe I could rent part of it to you." "How much would that be?" she asked. She held my hand and smiled. "I can manage that," she said with a cheerful grin. I took a deep breath. "I'll do it," I said, a little louder than I planned. "Are you sure?" she asked. "We've only been together for a week, and you may want something different." Her smile was bright, but I recognized she was serious about this. "Athena, I want you to know that what we have is about more than just being close physically," I said. "It's not just because I was upset or wanted to get back at Clara for her actions. You and I mean more than that." "I understand, Cello," she replied. "I just want you to know that I care about you as much as you care about me. So let's just enjoy this time we have together." And that's exactly what we did. Athena spent most of the morning and early afternoon with Anton. They worked on her performance for that evening, figuring out how to fit her solo into the spot that David K. usually took. They coordinated with the spotlight team and percussion players to make sure everything flowed perfectly. While she worked on that, I was upstairs in Anton's office sorting through his books. After updating the orchestra's records, I turned to Anton's personal finances. I was reconciling his taxes for the past few years with his income statements and realized that he owed the IRS a large sum of money. I needed to organize everything, contact them, and set up a meeting to discuss a payment plan before they contacted him. Just as I was thinking about how to address another of his issues, Athena walked in and started to massage my shoulders. "Can we get away from all of this?" she asked. "For one afternoon, I just want to be with you, no one else." I took her hands and we left. We didn't stop until we reached the parking lot. We loaded her cello into the back seat of the Mustang and drove away from the city and tourist spots. Luckily, the gas station attendants could speak some English. As I filled up the tank, I realized the cost was a bit of a surprise. Suddenly, I understood the appeal of smaller, more fuel-efficient cars, even though I doubted I would ever buy one. Comparing the Mustang to my more modern car felt like comparing two very different things. My newer cars had more power and were easier to drive, but the classic Mustang had a raw power all its own. It was hard to keep the tires from spinning whenever I pressed the gas pedal. On the other hand, a modern V6 Mustang had more horsepower and could go faster in a quarter mile. It's sad but true. I still wanted the Bullet, so I made a note to return to the Hertz office and set it up. I figured they would charge a bit extra, but they usually had cars available quickly. Even if I had to wait a bit for it, I was confident I could get one. After buying a few bottles of wine and juice along with some surprisingly modern snacks, we found a nice open field with some shade from trees for lunch. We later lay on a blanket under the trees, sharing glances. "I wish we could just stay here forever," she said. "Why's that?" I asked. "Aren't you excited about your big show as a soloist?" "I'm more interested in what you'll do after the concert," she replied. A couple of days after my call with Blake in Paris, I decided to reach out to Selena. "Selena, would you like to join me for lunch?" I asked. "Why do you want to?" she replied. "I'm your mother," I said. "Do I need a reason?" "Mom, I have lunch with Dad many times a week," she said. "In the last 3 years, I can't remember us having lunch together even once." "So it's about time," I said. There was a pause, and I could tell she was thinking about her choices, just like her dad would. "Honestly," I said in frustration, "I just wanted someone to talk to, and I thought you might want to." "Fine," she finally agreed, naming a restaurant and a time that worked for me. When I arrived at the restaurant and handed my keys to the valet, I spotted a new white Mustang convertible. Blake would like that car, I thought, but then I noticed the license plate read Selena and felt a bit defeated. As I entered the restaurant, I quickly saw her. She was in a booth in the back with her head down. As I approached, I realized why. She had a lot of financial documents and was working on something on her laptop. When I sat down, she glanced at me, then reluctantly closed her laptop and put it away. I smiled, and her eyes studied me. I felt it was best to change the subject. I didn't want to make her withdraw even more. I needed her to open up. "Selena, how long have you had that white Mustang?" I asked. Her expression turned a bit firmer, and she shook her head. I took that as a sign I might have made a mistake. I thought if she was anything like Blake, she would enjoy discussing the car. "Selena, I'm not trying to upset you," I said. "I was just making conversation." "It shows why you are where you are," she said. "I don't even care about the car," I replied. "I just thought it might be a nice topic for us. If you don't like it, you can always get another." "Well, it was a gift from Dad and supposedly from you," she snapped. "I thought you might recall what you gave your daughter for Christmas. Daddy and I talked about it during Christmas dinner," she said, and my eyes grew wide. "Mother, what did you and Daddy get me for my birthday?" she asked. "Your birthday is coming up soon?" I replied. "What do you want? I've been meaning to ask, but I've been so busy with—" "My birthday was in May," she reminded me. "You and Daddy got me the customized license plate and the shiny wheels for my car." "Oh, right, I forgot," I replied. "Those wheels are really nice. I remember when we chose them together." "What are wheels, Mother?" she asked. The things that go on the car," I said, feeling a bit embarrassed, wishing the conversation would shift to something else. She shook her head, clearly frustrated. I began to wonder how I raised a daughter who didn't share my traits. "Mother, the wheels are what the car drives on," she said. "I knew that," I responded. She looked at me, and I felt like a child caught in a mistake. She reached for her bag, and I took her hand. "Selena, please stay," I said. "Mother, why am I really here?" she asked. "I came when I could have been working because you sounded like you needed me. But I don't know why. You've never shown interest in me or my hobbies, so what's the reason you wanted me here? Just tell me, and let's save us both some time." "Selena, I'm your mother. I care about you," I said. "I believe you think you care," she replied. "But you don't really know me. Growing up, if I had trouble at school, Daddy was there. If I needed something, Daddy showed up. Parent-teacher meetings, graduations, games, it was always Daddy. My friends thought he was a single parent." "I understand," I said, feeling frustrated. "Your father had more time to attend your events." We were both busy. He just had more free time. Mother, Daddy worked full-time while you weren't employed, she said. He made an effort to be there for me, and you didn't make time for your daughter. Why am I here? She asked again. I just needed someone to talk to, I admitted. What about your friends from the charity groups? She asked. Can't you talk to them? Not about what's happening now, I told her. It's too embarrassing. All right then, talk, she urged. Selena, your father is involved with someone else, I confessed. I just can't process it. She looked at me in disbelief. No, he isn't, Mother. I know what has been happening. You've had summer relationships for years. Daddy found out last year. You had a chance to stop, but you didn't. Now, because you've been found out, everything's changing. But, she continued, Daddy decides to do the same thing you've been doing. But there's a difference. He told you about it. He didn't hide what he was doing. This isn't a joke, Selena, I said. Sure it is, she replied. He's not handling this well. He doesn't get what it means. What do you mean? I asked. Being with someone else besides your partner takes a certain kind of person, she explained. You need to be brave enough to deal with what comes next, but that's not really him. You should worry if he starts to care about her. Do you think that could happen? I asked. I've talked to her on the phone, she said. She seems really nice. That gives her a lot of points, and you have none, Mom. Selena, I said sharply. Her eyes widened, and she started to gather her things. It's been fun, Mom, she said. We should hang out more often. Next time, just tell me what you want me to say instead of letting me share my own thoughts. It seems like you prefer everything to center around you. But we haven't eaten, I said, as she walked out of the restaurant. 3 weeks later, with summer coming to an end, I felt lost. Since Blake returned from Paris, things had changed. He was different. We did talk, of course. It was hard not to, since we lived in the same house. He had moved to a guest room. I brought up our talking several times, but he always told me to wait until after summer. Each morning, he left before I got up. Most nights, he came back home after work and went right back out again. He had another Mustang shipped from France, and honestly, I didn't know how many cars he owned. I spent a lot of time reflecting on myself, but maybe I was just imagining things. After talking with my daughter, I realized I might lose my husband to a woman who seemed to have many good qualities that, according to Selena, I didn't possess. The hardest part was seeing her picture in the paper. A serious-looking young woman had her hair pulled back neatly, making her look like a librarian. I felt uneasy. Who is that? Selena asked when she saw me staring at the image. It's a picture of your father's partner, I said. That's not a new picture of Athena, she laughed. I wasn't sure if Selena was trying to cheer me up or not, but she led me to her father's home office. His phone automatically uploaded pictures to a cloud server, making them accessible on all his devices and computers. Blake didn't protect his computer with a password in the office. I guess he still trusted me with some things, I thought. Or maybe he just didn't think I would look through his stuff. Selena looked through his photo folder and found several pictures of a young woman. She was beautiful, with long, rich brown hair that reached nearly to her waist. Her eyes sparkled, and her smile showed a wisdom beyond her years. In every picture, it felt like she was sharing her warmth. Then I realized she wasn't aiming it at the camera. She was giving it to the person behind the lens. The photo that surprised me the most showed her playing the cello. The more I looked at it, the more uneasy I felt. She wore a flowing dress that seemed to move as if she had just turned to face the camera. The look on her face directed at my husband showed a strong bond. Seeing that image hit me hard. I suddenly understood that, unlike my past relationships, this was not just an annoyance. This girl could easily win Blake's heart. I had been sure our marriage would weather this storm I caused, but now I was not so confident. I believed our shared history would help us through my mistakes, but I had to face the reality. This girl was younger and more captivating than I had ever been, and she clearly cared for Blake. She also had no past to hold her back. When he looked at her, he didn't see the woman he had loved for so long. He could still trust her. This was about old memories versus a bright new future. I had no idea which path my husband would choose. "Mom," said Selena, pulling me from my thoughts. "Earth to Mom." I turned my head from the computer screen to see my daughter's smiling face. "You zoned out there for a moment," she said. "Anyway, this is what Athena looks like now. She's nice. You'd probably like her. If she wasn't spending so much time with Daddy, that is. Well, I have to get back to work," she added. "Tell Daddy I love him." Seeing those pictures sparked something in me. I realized that if I wanted my husband back, I couldn't just wait for him to stop seeing her. I needed to take action. I had to bring back the energy I had when we first met. I also needed to remind him that summer would end soon and make our future seem as exciting as the one he might have with this talented young woman. No, I told myself. That way would lead to lies. I needed to be realistic. Blake would not fall for someone without depth. This young woman was likely very smart, and if she could succeed as a musician, she was probably driven and self-sufficient too. It would be a serious mistake to underestimate her. In the days that followed, I changed my entire way of living and my approach. I took inspiration from my daughter. I visited Blake's office to talk to him. It was an important moment for me. I had talked to Blake's secretary on the phone many times over the years, but this was the first time I had actually seen her. When I entered the office, I was about to walk into Blake's office, but she stood up and blocked my way. "I'm here to see Blake Livingston," I said. "I'll check if he's busy," she answered. She sat back down and spoke to Blake. "Please have a seat over there," she told me, then returned to her conversation with him. "Blake, there's someone here to see you. It doesn't seem to be a business matter, and I think Athena would be upset if she knew you had visitors. Yes, I'll find out who she is and set a time for her to come back. She started. "Livingston," I replied. "I'm his wife." Her expression turned to surprise. "I'll call him back," she said. After a moment, she looked at me and said, "You can go in now." Blake looked surprised to see me too. It made me think about many things. Most of the women I worked with often called their husbands during meetings. I rarely called Blake, and if he called me, I usually let it go to voicemail, thinking he would tell me later. Maybe I hadn't put enough effort into our marriage either. "Blake, I've been looking at some therapists," I said, placing a paper on his desk. "We don't have to pick from this list, but the top 3 are very well rated in our area. We can choose one from here, or if you have someone in mind, that works for me. Would you rather wait until summer is over, or would you like to start sooner?" He stared at me as if he was seeing me clearly for the first time. "Will you finish your summer activities before or after we start counseling?" he asked. "Blake, I'm done with summer distractions," I said. "I haven't spoken to or seen anyone since the last time with Stephen when you were in Paris. I know you haven't let me explain that, but I think it will come out in therapy. The only person I care about now is you. I've also decided to cut back on my community work to focus on our marriage. I realize I've taken us for granted for a long time, and I have a lot to make up for to you and our daughter." He looked even more surprised. I smiled and leaned in to give him a light kiss on the cheek. Even though we were married, I knew a kiss on the lips might not be the best choice right now. I wanted to show my support and commitment to him, and I was determined to rebuild our bond. Athena had her own charm, but Blake loved the way I looked enough to marry me, and I reminded myself of that. I had some special qualities that made me different. As Blake thought about what I said, I remembered the times when we were so close, sharing everything. It made me wonder what had changed between us. Not long ago, we spent a lot of time together. "So if you're not with anyone, who are you dressing for?" he asked. "Who do you think?" I smiled and walked toward the door of his office. I noticed Blake was surprised. I had picked my outfit just right that day, and I walked with a bit more confidence as I left, hoping to bring back what we once had. Athena. It was a Thursday evening when everything changed for us. It turned out to be the opposite of how we started. We had toasted to sweet beginnings and bitter endings, and it felt all too real. We were lying in bed together, and Blake was gently touching me. The moment felt nice, but we both had secrets. I had a big one, and I wasn't ready to share it. I wondered what would happen to us. Every tick of the clock reminded me of my worries. I had set rules for our relationship and realized I had made some mistakes. Why couldn't I have thought of it differently? Maybe then it could have lasted longer. In my rush and lack of foresight, I didn't think about how I would feel when it ended. To be honest, I never meant to let him go, but I thought I had time to express my feelings. It felt like that time had run out, and I had so much left to say. Just as I was about to speak, he leaned in, stirring feelings that made it hard to focus. "Honey, have you noticed any changes?" he asked, reminding me how naturally we fell into our rhythm. I could see where this was going, and it made me think about what lay ahead for us. Then, the sudden sound of the phone ringing interrupted the moment, and we both groaned. I reached for it. "What?" I said, a bit annoyed. "Sorry, Athena, did I catch you at a bad time?" Brenda's voice sounded nervous, and I could tell she was upset. "Brenda, why are you calling? What's wrong?" I asked. After Paris, Brenda decided to stay with David Kay. She was with him while he tried to make things right with the orchestra. Sadly, the board of directors chose Anton's side. David Kay's actions had almost harmed the orchestra's reputation. In the end, he was let go without any severance pay, and the board decided they wouldn't cover his therapy or medical costs either. David Kay didn't have any insurance, so he was left to handle it on his own. The situation had made things difficult between David Kay and the orchestra. He decided that once he could use his hands to play again, he would look for a position with a different orchestra. There were several choices, including the Philharmonic in our city and others nearby. To keep things smooth, Brenda left the orchestra right after we returned from Paris. David Kay's hand healed, and he went through therapy, which he paid for with his savings. However, he didn't seem to get back all the flexibility he once had. Despite his hard work and the exercises, his hands tired quickly. The doctors assured him he would slowly regain strength, but it would take time, possibly years. They also mentioned that while his strength would improve, he might not fully regain the speed and movement in his fingers. He also dealt with a limp. His broken knee healed, but it still hurt for him to stand up straight. Brenda didn't seem bothered by these challenges. She believed they would face everything together. I was living a happy life, surrounded by joy and love. I hadn't thought much about Brenda, as she had chosen to end our friendship. I was surprised she had the courage to reach out. "I'm sorry, Athena," she said, her voice trembling. "I shouldn't have disturbed you, but you said when I was ready. I just hoped." "Brenda, what's wrong?" I asked again, sitting up. "Where are you?" "I'm in the lobby of your building," she replied, sniffling. "Come on up," I told her. Blake and I quickly got dressed. The comfort we found in each other's company was strong, and I hoped he knew I cared a lot for him. A gentle knock on the door interrupted us as I opened it for Brenda. I was taken aback. She had changed. Her once bright energy seemed dim. "You two are still together?" she asked, surprised to see Blake. "But it's fall. Shouldn't you have moved on?" she said, looking at me, then at Blake. "And you should be back with your wife." "Brenda, I need to talk with Cello," I said. "Why don't you go into my room and wait for me?" "But how will you find your true love like we talked about if you can't let go of him? You're making things complicated, Athena," she said. "Blake," I started. "It's okay, honey," he replied. "Maybe she's right. You need to go to Florida for the shows, and I have my responsibilities too. Thank you for everything. This summer has been unforgettable for me. I won't forget you. But maybe it's time for you to follow your path." His voice was thick with emotion, and he reached out to shake my hand. Just moments ago, we had shared something special, and now the heaviness of goodbye hung in the air. "Are you coming in here or not?" Brenda asked, breaking the moment. I turned to look at Blake, struggling to keep my feelings in check. He gave me one last glance before opening the door and leaving. I wanted to ask him to stay. I wanted to say all the things I hadn't shared, hoping for just a bit more time together. This wasn't the right time for us to part ways. Who was I kidding? It would never really be the right time for us to part. "Ugh," Brenda said. "I thought he would never leave." I leaned against the door, feeling overwhelmed. I pressed my hand against it, unaware that Blake was on the other side, feeling just as heartbroken. Picture a man on his knees, hand on a door, filled with sadness, too. If things were fair, we wouldn't have felt such pain. But neither of us had been completely open. "I told you he would hurt you," Brenda snapped. "I gave David Kay all my love, and all he did was disappoint me. Again." She knelt beside me. "We don't need them, you know." "Brenda," I said sharply, "I told you long ago not to call me that. Only one person has the right to call me that, and you just pushed him away. Right now, I just want to sleep and feel sorry for myself. Save your stories about David Kay for tomorrow. I hear he has hit a new low, huh? He can't stand up to other men, so he takes it out on you." "But," Brenda said, her voice sounding small. "Enough, Brenda," I snapped. "I warned you in Paris that you couldn't trust him. You chose to end our friendship to chase after him, so whatever happened is on you. Just leave me be. I can wallow in my misery alone." Clara, marriage counseling, like any type of therapy, needs a truthful look at oneself. After nearly a month of going to sessions 3 times a week, I started to see that I had some deep-seated issues. Each layer I uncovered revealed more beneath it. Blake's problems were simpler. His main issue was that he worked too much. Once he admitted it, he and the therapist looked into why he was so busy. It turned out he had focused on work for the past year to avoid being at home, where there was tension around my choices. Instead of talking to me about how he felt, he buried himself in work. Before these issues arose, he had worked fewer hours, motivated by wanting to provide for both of us. I had always made it clear that I cared more about our time together than the things money could buy, which could have helped fix the underlying issues. Before we could work on our relationship's deeper problems, I needed to deal with the choices I now regretted. I also needed to face the distance that had grown between me and my daughter. At some point, I had emotionally distanced myself from her. I noticed that she had become very close to Blake instead of me. As she grew, I found myself setting rules while Blake was the one she turned to for support. It felt like our relationship had changed. She was more interested in him and often ignored me. I began to worry if it was too late to improve our bond. Learning that she chose to stand with Blake's partner rather than me was hard to handle. When I talked to her about it, she just shrugged and said, "Not everything is about you, Mom. This is about Daddy. If Athena makes him happy, that's fine with me." Our therapist gave us exercises to do. He suggested we spend time in the same room, even if we weren't talking much. We should set aside at least half an hour each day to discuss simple topics without bringing up our past issues. During one session, the therapist asked us to share our feelings for each other. I said, "I love my husband more than anyone else," without thinking twice. Blake stayed quiet. I was used to this silence now. He had been having a hard time with his feelings for a while. I hoped therapy would help him face the challenges in our marriage. But inside, I feared it might not work. Eventually, the therapist had to encourage Blake to express his feelings after a long pause. "Mr. Livingston, do you love your wife too?" he asked kindly. Blake shrugged and said, "I guess so." Those words hit me hard, and I struggled to hold back my tears. The therapist sent Blake home and wanted to focus on just me for the rest of the session. Until then, I believed everything would turn out okay because Blake and I had love. That love felt solid, and hearing any doubt made me feel uneasy. The therapist had warned me about possible setbacks, so I thought I was ready for anything. But this was overwhelming. I realized that after summer, Blake was not just avoiding closeness. He wouldn't even sleep in the same room with me. The therapist had agreed this was okay for Blake since he needed time. I had tried to suggest our needs gently, thinking many men connect love with intimacy. I worried that if Blake took my distance the wrong way, he might think I didn't care for him. Eventually, I stopped hinting and directly asked him about our situation. He just walked away, shaking his head. As November neared, my committee's big fall gala was also coming up. Blake and I were going as we always did. I was excited to introduce him to the other committee members, especially to the woman who had caused many of my troubles. Blake's bank was one of our biggest supporters, and other banks needed to match their donations to keep a good image. In this way, Blake helped us earn a lot of money, and also gave personally. Naturally, his daughter Selena would also want to help since her father was involved. On the day of the gala, I got my hair done and thought I would swing by Selena's office to pick up her check since it was close by. I entered her office with a smile, but her expression quickly changed from focus to annoyance. I had only said, "Dress nicely and don't be late, dear," and it clearly bothered her. She suddenly stood up, wrote a check, and tossed it at my feet. With my heels on, it was tough to pick it up, and as I finally stood, her look made me uneasy for a moment. "What's wrong with you, Mom?" she asked. "What do you mean?" I replied. "How's everything with your marriage?" She replied with a smirk. "Your father and I are working on our issues, and I hope things will get better," I said. "Maybe you could join us for some sessions. The therapist also does family counseling." "I'm sure you'll figure it out," she said sarcastically. just in time for his funeral. "Selena, sometimes I don't understand you," I said. "You'd think you'd be happy to see your parents trying to fix things." "Not if it's hurting him," she responded. "You only see what you want to see. Dad has lost weight and seems distant lately. If I didn't know better, I'd think he's struggling." She then looked at me and muttered something about not wanting to be at my funeral. As I left her office, I thought maybe work was too much for her. The party itself was a big moment. Blake stayed with me the whole time. We danced, and I tried to connect with him as I always had. Before, Blake was warm and caring. He always enjoyed those moments with me. But this time, as I moved closer while dancing, I felt let down. Instead of responding warmly, he looked distant, wandering around the room with an empty expression. Later, while checking on the food and making sure everything was all right, Lisa came over. "Clara Livingston," she said, acting as if we hadn't just seen each other the day before. "Everything appears fine with your marriage. How's Blake? He doesn't seem like himself. He seems more down than usual." I glanced at my husband, watching him closely. Lisa's words reminded me of what Selena had said earlier that day. It also made me think about something else Selena had been telling me for a while. She always said she loved her father, so whatever made him happy was fine with her. In that moment, I realized that I loved him too, and I knew what I needed to do. The next afternoon, I made the plans. I needed Selena's help, and as soon as she learned what I wanted to do, she agreed right away. When Blake got home from work, I called him into the living room where Selena was waiting. "Hi, kitten," he said. I could see that seeing our daughter, even after just a day, brightened his mood a little. As my heart raced, I decided to follow through with my plan. "Blake, I can't do this anymore," I said with conviction. "I want you to leave my house right now. Come back only when you can act better." I spoke calmly and hoped Selena would see how difficult this was for me. "You can't throw me out of my own house," he replied, his tone flat. "Yes, I can," I said, keeping a slight smile. "I can get help if needed." "Let him try," Blake said without concern. "It's not about him," I explained. "I don't care who it is," he answered. "Where is this person? My lawyer will." "Just open the door to the office," I said, pointing to a small door on the left. My voice trembled a bit, and I hoped he wouldn't see the tears in my eyes. He stood up in anger and went to the door I indicated. Many men act like animals when upset. They try to show strength. Blake did that as he walked to the door. He twisted the handle, ready to confront whoever was inside. When he opened the door, he seemed to shrink back in surprise. I wished he had been facing me, but I could see the look of shock in his eyes as he saw her. "Hello, Cello," she greeted him warmly. In an instant, he reached out to her. She didn't pull back. Instead, she playfully said, "Be careful. There are two of us in here," giggling. Blake didn't realize how far along Athena was. It felt like a scene from a movie. They hugged tightly, holding each other close. Blake turned to me and I walked over to him. "I didn't know," he said, a look of confusion on his face. "Why? What is happening?" "I want you to be happy, Blake," I answered. "That means we can't stay together. I made mistakes and now we need to move on. You need to take this little girl and leave my house. I have to figure out my next steps, but we need to do this for our own good. Being apart will hurt, but it will make me stronger, and I won't repeat my past." Someone wise told me I need to grow up and focus on my life, right, Selena? You don't feel the same way about me anymore. And Blake, you tried to take on something too big and it didn't work out. He looked at me, puzzled. I managed to smile even though my heart was breaking. "Blake, you're just not the type for something casual. You wear your feelings openly. Now please tell her you care and take her away from here. And just so you know, I'm keeping the house. You can have our daughter and the loud cars. We can figure out the rest later." Blake let go of her hand, but she quickly reached out for him again. It was hard for me to see, but I knew I had made the right choice. Blake hugged me tightly, showing more emotion than he had in a long time. Maybe my actions had ended our marriage, but I wanted to keep my family together. Selena came over to hug both of us. I helped Athena into my car. I wasn't in my usual vehicle. Since we had separated, I picked a different car that fit my mood. I was very careful putting the seatbelt across her belly. Come on, I won't break, she teased. You didn't treat me like I was delicate when we were together. I don't even have a home right now, he said, sounding a bit annoyed. Don't worry, she said gently. We'll find a new place. Your wife talked about a house when she brought me there. I told her it was too big for us. It felt more like a museum than a home. 4, I exclaimed. You, me, the baby, and my cello, she replied playfully. But why didn't? I started to say. We'll talk when we get to the apartment, she said. Just hold my hand and keep it there, and look for a pizza place. I've been hungry all the time. I remember those cravings, I said. But Clara didn't have cravings like that when she was pregnant with Selena. I've cried every day since you went away, she said. Please don't do that again. Before I could answer, she suddenly pointed out the window. Right there, Burger King! I looked at her, not sure what to think. I was surprised by her excitement. I thought you said pizza. Then she gave me that look that always gets to partners. Not wanting to be foolish, I stayed quiet and drove into the drive-thru. 30 minutes later, we were sitting on her couch, and I watched her happily eat fries. If joy could make someone faint, I would have been overwhelmed in that moment. So, she said after taking a sip of her soda, isn't there something you want to say to me? Like, I asked carefully. Like an apology, she said, looking at me with big eyes. For leaving me. From what I remember, I said, you and your friend made it sound like you had everything sorted out without me. Remember her saying you needed to get rid of me to find your true love? Remember her saying we were just a summer fling? Before I could say more, I heard a noise from one of the back rooms. Athena lived in a 2-bedroom apartment. She used one room for music and work, and the other was her bedroom. Brenda stepped outside. I smell food, she said loudly. And I think I heard someone talking about me. The marks on her face were gone, but her once friendly look had changed into a permanent scowl. Hello, Blake, she said. Are you here to end things? Athena looked between Brenda and me. We were just discussing you, Bren, she said. The last time the 3 of us were together, we all made mistakes, she continued. I can't be blamed for my choices because I was pregnant at the time. You, she pointed at me. You should have realized that. You've been through something similar. You noticed my body was changing. You should have guessed. Then she looked at Brenda. You were so hurt by David K. that you wanted to lash out at any man you saw. You knew from the start this wasn't just a summer fling. When you asked why I called him Cello, what did I say? You said you loved him, Brenda replied flatly, turning back to me. See? She said, feeling victorious. So you told Brenda you love me, I said. How was I supposed to know? You never told me. And you didn't tell me either, she argued back. I didn't want to scare you away since you were married then. Plus, you agreed to a summer fling. I was afraid. What if I told you and then you vanished like Brenda's boyfriends? Athena, I never mentioned it because I've been trying to understand why someone as amazing as you would want to be with someone like me, I admitted. Oh my God, he's charming, Brenda added. He's also involved with someone, Athena replied. Then she looked at me. All right, I forgive you, come here, she said, opening her arms. Wait, I said. What about me forgiving you? For what? She asked. I was set aside so you could find your true love, I replied. I was the one who got hurt. You're right, she acknowledged. Then she turned to Brenda. I understand your pain from what happened with David K. But I did warn you. What happened to you is partly your responsibility. I still want us to be friends, but you'll need to find another place to stay tonight. Brenda looked shocked. What? She gasped. Part of this is because if you hadn't been there that night, Blake and I wouldn't have had to spend these last few weeks apart, Athena explained. The other part is really for your own good. I have a feeling that very soon, 2 people in this apartment are going to grow much closer. She smiled at me and beckoned me with her finger. I walked over to her slowly. She pulled me close, and I felt overwhelmed but let it happen. I pulled back for a moment. I love you, Athena, I said seriously. Once my divorce is final, will you marry me? Let's see, she smiled. Even though I had a summer romance, I'm still a decent person, right? I nodded. You're a good guy, right? I shrugged. Well, let's say that you are, she said with a smile. I'll support you. Anyway, good guys marry girls when they find themselves in a situation like this. So if you think about it, I see a wedding in the spring. But for now, I need to stay warm, so come here. Brenda, called Athena, can you hand me those fries on your way out? Epilogue. Clara. Letting go of my husband was the hardest thing I ever did, but it was also very rewarding. For the first few days, I felt terrible. The ache in my heart seemed endless. But Blake called me every day. So did Selena, which surprised me. The biggest shock was when Athena called too. At first, it felt a bit odd to talk to her. After all, she was the one who had kind of taken my husband. But she seemed to really care about how I was doing, and that helped a lot. As time went on, our talks changed to her asking me about her pregnancy, and I hope I was able to give her the support she needed. It raised some eyebrows when I showed up at her baby shower with a gift and a hug. But that was nothing compared to when people learned that, with Blake's agreement, Athena had chosen me as the godmother. The divorce itself was finalized quickly and smoothly. I wanted enough money to live comfortably and keep the house. Blake divided the money and our investments with me equally. He even set up my new accounts and investments so that, as long as I was careful, I wouldn't need to work. I felt independent and wouldn't have to rely on him for anything else. For the first time in my life, I felt like an adult. We gathered at each other's homes often, but eventually, even though I felt part of a family, I wanted to do something on my own. My daughter's words about how my charities weren't really helping people often came to mind. With Blake's help, I bought a building that had once been a fire station. I truly transformed the inside with support from Blake, Athena, Selena, and others who could help during the summer. The most unexpected person was Lisa, who became my partner in the project. My daughter, Selena, helped us keep track of finances, but we didn't host fancy events. The firehouse simply opened its doors each day to provide hot meals twice a day for as many people as we could feed. In the second year, we fixed up the upper floor to create living space for up to 8 people who needed a home. For the first 2 years, I brought my goddaughter Hera with me for a few hours each day while her mom practiced. But after 2 years, Athena wanted to join me instead, seeking to be there while her daughter grew up. I noticed that change and thought it was wonderful. There would never be the same kind of distance between them that took Selena and me so long to bridge. In the 4th year after the firehouse opened, a man named Edward Thomas stayed with us for a few weeks. He was getting back on his feet after going through a tough divorce. It only took him 3 months to find a job and a better place to live, and I felt sad to see him go, but he didn't really leave. He started coming by after work to help out, and he was eager to take on all the chores that needed doing. Athena invited him to help with Hera's 5th birthday party, which ended up being a lovely celebration. After all the kids had gone home, I noticed that Edward was still there with our family. Blake had asked him to stay. I called Selena over and asked her about the outfits she and Athena chose for the party. I suggested they might want to wear something a bit more covered up. Selena laughed and told me Athena was just having a good time. "Just watch, Mom," she said. Athena did something silly that made everyone smile. Curious about what was funny, I asked Selena, and she told me that while Edward hadn't noticed Athena much, he seemed quite interested when I walked around. And it turned out that Edward and I did start a relationship. We're not in a fast-paced romance like Blake and Athena, but we're happy. This time I'm older and more patient. We both have our responsibilities and jobs, but we make time for each other. I've learned that love needs attention to grow. It can't thrive on its own. The real threats to love aren't outside distractions, but being apart from each other and feeling bored. There are still no excuses for dishonesty, even if he works a lot. This time I believe we're going to be just fine.